Chapter 290. It was night time. Horses galloped out of Shunning City one after another. Teams of knights in bright armor held swords and sabers in their hands and rushed to Xiongwujuan's camp like a torrent. Everyone's movements were almost uniform, and there was a touch of resoluteness in their eyes. The previous battles were almost all handled by the evil beasts, but tonight's night attack was a battle led by human beings. This was also the first real battle since the establishment of the Beijing Guard Army. Almost everyone rushed to the front line with the idea that they could not lose even if they had to risk their lives. After all, although the leaders of the northern frontier were the evil beasts, the relationship between human beings and the evil beasts was only a cooperative relationship. If the military power of the northern frontier could not be established, they could only accept the protection of the evil beasts in the future, and the human side would fall into a disadvantageous position. This battle was not only to protect the northern frontier, but also to fight for a better life in the future. On the other hand, the guardians of the northern region did not intend to catch the enemy off guard in the first place, so they did not deliberately conceal their voices. Therefore, before they appeared in the sight of Xiongwujuan's outpost, Xiongwujuan already knew that the humans in Shunning City had taken the initiative to attack them. Because of the death of General Su Wu, the Xiongwujuan's army, who had been suppressing their anger for a long time, did not have the slightest intention to retreat in the face of the enemy's active provocation. Pairs of sharp eyes lit up in the darkness, and swords had already been unsheathed. Their fighting spirit was not inferior to that of the guard army of the northern frontier, who was determined to prove themselves. The vanguards of the two sides quickly clashed. There were almost no tactics or strategies to speak of. They had directly returned to the primitive warfare where people were face to face. If you gave me a stab, I would immediately return the stab as long as I didn't die. It was a desperate state of fighting. Broken limbs flew everywhere, and blood was constantly gushing out, almost dyeing the ground red. Bodies fell down one after another, and the soldiers behind rushed up dauntlessly. The battle had just begun, but it had already entered a state of anxiety. The eyes of the two sides turned red, and they kept waving their weapons to kill the enemy in front of them, and then continued to move forward to find the next enemy until they fell down. Meanwhile, the young lieutenant who was still in Xiongwujuan's camp rubbed his chin and murmured, "If Black Snake cannot beat Xiongwujuan into submission tonight, then starting tomorrow, Xiongwujuan will start to divide his forces. Of the 3 million soldiers, he will release at least 1,200,000. The rest will continue to stay here to confront Black Snake. The released soldiers will burn, kill, and pillage the northern frontier that is completely defenseless. Even if they cannot break the fighting spirit of Black Snake and his subordinates, they will at least make all of Black Snake's efforts in this period of time go to waste." As his gaze swept across the sand table one by one, the mocking look in the young lieutenant's eyes became more and more intense. The organization had investigated the mysterious Black Snake before and came to a similar conclusion as Zhangxiu. They all believed that the Black Snake was a smokescreen thrown out by the Shifter Emperor. However, as the absolute executor of the Shifter Emperor's orders, the Black Snake was an existence that could not be underestimated. However, the current situation was so bad. How could the Black Snake break out of this situation? The young lieutenant began to think carefully about the Black Snake's thoughts. In the end, he still believed that if the Black Snake could not break Xiongwujuan's courage today and scare them into thinking that they could only feel safe by sticking together, then the loser of this game was destined to be the Black Snake. The total number of people on both sides was close to 5 million. However, in the eyes of the young lieutenant, this was just a game. A game where he represented the force behind him to greet the Black Snake. Xiongwujuan's military strength is nearly 3 times more than the Black Snake's. If the Black Snake's subordinates are all monsters, then this difference in military strength can naturally be ignored. However, after the previous few battles, the monsters in the periphery of the Hengduan mountain range were almost wiped out. It would take at least 1 or 2 years for them to recover. As for the monsters in the vicinity, after the battle, naturally, they would not be under the command of the Monster King Court. Even if they did not evacuate, without the order of the Monster King Court, these monsters would not be able to leave the Hengduan mountain range. It seems that the only way out for our monster king is to gather all the troops tonight and directly launch an attack on Seongwujuan, right? But in this way, it is hard to say whether the Black Snake can win or not. Even if it wins, it will be a Pyrrhic victory. As long as I prepare in advance and gather the defeated soldiers of Seongwujuan in advance, I can take advantage of the Black Snake's carelessness and directly launch a counterattack. Maybe I can directly behead the Black Snake. Yes, I understand. I will not be impulsive. The Black Snake is just a smoke bomb. Our purpose is still to find the monster king behind the Black Snake. Yes, I have never dared to forget the teachings of the organization. Please rest assured, I will definitely complete this mission successfully and give a satisfactory answer to the higher-ups. The young lieutenant's voice rang out once again. However, this time, his tone was filled with respect as if he was reporting to an incredible existence. It is not necessary to charge with the whole army. After all, only a reckless man likes to charge without thinking. My snake prefers a more stable fighting style. Suddenly, a discordant voice suddenly interrupted the young lieutenant's soliloquy. At this moment, the young lieutenant who was holding a yellow talisman turned his head with a blank face. He just happened to see the Black Snake that was suspected to be the monster king in the intelligence report standing at the entrance of the tent yawning. Moreover, he did not know how long it had been there. If it had not suddenly opened its mouth to speak, the young lieutenant really did not know that he had been discovered by the enemy. The warning array that he had set up around him did not respond at all. It was as if the Black Snake had already been here before the array was set up. You. The young lieutenant pointed at the Black Snake and could not say a word for a long time. He could not imagine that the things he had done before were so secretive that even Seongwujuan did not suspect him. How did this Black Snake find him directly? Lin Yuan yawned, and a hint of ridicule flashed through his heterochromatic eyes. He sneered and said, "You want the entire northern frontier to fall into chaos. Then, before the war began, you began to think about how to persuade Su Wu to divide the army, then assassinate Su Wu, and then pour the dirty water on us, so that Seongwujuan would fight with us to the end. Although you didn't expect that Su Wu would be defeated by me on the first day of the war, that's why you jumped out in a panic to suggest a strategy to divide the troops so as to pave the way for the next steps. From the current results, you have succeeded." Chapter 291. The corner of the young lieutenant's mouth twitched slightly. Of course, he knew that his operation had been successful so far. However, he still wanted to know why the Black Serpent had locked onto him, and why the Black Serpent could freely enter and exit the Seongwujuan camp without being discovered. Also, what was up with his alerting array? Thinking of this, he lowered his head again and looked at his alerting array. He still couldn't find any problems. The array was still operating normally, but there was nothing within its monitoring range. It was as if the Black Serpent in front of him didn't exist at all. The other aspects are not bad, but it's a pity that your plan is too stupid. From the moment you started the operation, you exposed a fatal flaw, and you still haven't figured out this flaw. So, you're still staying in the Seongwujuan camp, trying to remotely command this battle, right? Although there are many mercenaries and demon slayers in the Seongwujuan camp, you have to know that these people can only obey all the military operations of the Seongwujuan camp. After all, no matter how good and tempting the suggestion of a bunch of golden hounds sounded, it could still become a trap for the enemy to deal a fatal blow to them. So, if you want to carry out the plan of dividing the troops, you have to have a few people who have a say in the Seongwujuan camp. However, the Seongwujuan camp is a whole army that was transferred from the South Sea battlefield, and its organization is well preserved. Even if it's a defeated army, their status is actually not much higher than those mercenaries. So, you can only temporarily bribe some higher-ups in the Seongwujuan camp and arrange your own people. Because what you want to do is too sensitive, it's impossible to get the support of the Shinwu dynasty. Even if the Shinwu dynasty knows about this after the fact, they will definitely hold the higher-ups of the Seongwujuan camp accountable. So, even if you bribe these people, it's useless. At most, they will be assisting, but they will definitely not take the lead in this matter. So, it's necessary to arrange one of your own people. However, because of the lack of time, this person's status will definitely not be too high. The lieutenant, and the like are probably already dead. Since the position is not high, for the sake of rationality, this person is obviously a young man. After all, an outstanding young man will easily be taken care of by his seniors. So, those higher-ups who are assisting you will have a reason to leave. Wasn't that right? Because of this, I narrowed down the scope of my target once again. There weren't many young people who joined the Xiongwujuan recently, and you were the only one whose military rank was suddenly raised. Now that I think about it, if you guys had considered this point in your plan, and had promoted a few more smoke bombs, wouldn't I have been blinded by it? Who knows, I might really have to bet everything tonight to determine the victor between me and Xiongwujuan. Lin Yuan said slowly as he coiled his snake body. A cold light flickered in his heterochromatic eyes. The young lieutenant scratched his head as his eyes turned bloodshot. Although this operation used a lot of the organization's spies and connections, and even spent a lot of resources to get him the rank of lieutenant, as the executor of this operation, he was also the planner of this operation. After all, no one expected an existence thousands of miles away to be able to understand every move here and change the operation plan at any time. As long as he gave a general direction, there would be countless strategists to help him perfect and fix the plan. So, until the appearance of the black snake, he felt that there was no mistake in his operation. But now that the black snake slowly pointed out the most fatal flaw in his plan, it suddenly made him feel that he was extremely stupid. So, it turned out that he had exposed himself from the beginning. Could it be that his IQ was even lower than a demon beast hiding in the Hengduan mountain range? Humph. The young lieutenant forcibly expelled the complicated emotions from his mind and said with a gloomy face, "Even if you know everything, what's the use? There's already a fight outside. Black Snake, as the most famous warmonger in the Hengduan mountain range, you should be very clear about the terrifying power of war, right? As long as you're slightly agitated, you'll completely lose control and fall into a state of slaughter. Now, let alone you, even if you and the higher-ups of Xiongwujuan go out together, you won't be able to stop the people outside." Speaking of this, the young lieutenant's eyes had already revealed a touch of madness. He was clear about his own strength, so he didn't even bother to struggle. After being caught red-handed by the black snake, he could only choose to die a little more painfully or die a little more quickly. In addition to the previous shame of being crushed by a demon beast in terms of IQ, he only wanted to see the black snake suffer at this moment. So, he didn't even consider what terrible things would happen to him after the black snake was angered by him. He had already spat out some ridiculing and mocking words. "You seem to have misunderstood something," Lin Yuan tilted his head and sneered. "I don't think I've ever said that I don't want them to fight, right? The northern frontier has already broken away from the control of the Shenwu dynasty. Even without Xiongwujuan, there will be other troops to quell the chaos. So, this war will break out sooner or later. So, why should I stop them?" Speaking of this, Lin Yuan slowly raised his chin and said coldly, "My purpose is just to find a bastard like you who is causing trouble behind the scenes, and then mercilessly tear you to pieces." Lin Yuan really couldn't think of any reason to stop the war to show the muscles of the northern frontier. After this war, the northern frontier could even justifiably break away from the control of the Shenwu dynasty. From then on, it would become a free country independent of the 7 great empires. The battle cries came from afar. Obviously, the Beijing Guard army had already killed their way in from outside the camp. After all, Xiongwujuan was just holding back his anger, but the Northern Frontier Guard army was fighting for a better life in the future. Both sides had different ideologies, so naturally, their fighting strength couldn't be compared. More than 3 million Xiongwujuan soldiers were actually completely suppressed by more than 600,000 Northern Frontier Guard army at this moment, and even began to retreat. If this scene was seen by outsiders, they would definitely not believe that this was a battle between humans. After all, this kind of terrifying casualty ratio and offensive momentum could only be achieved by demon beasts fighting humans in the wilderness. "I've guessed so much about your plan. Why don't you take a guess?" The demon beasts didn't participate in this battle, so what are they doing? If you guess it, there will be a reward. Lin Yuan's low voice sounded again, like a devil whispering in the darkness, instantly planting the seed of fear in the young lieutenant's heart. Chapter 292. The young lieutenant did not have any intention of speaking to Lin Yuan as he hugged his head with both hands and turned around to run in a certain direction. Lin Yuan followed the young lieutenant out of the tent slowly, his cold eyes looking at the back of the young lieutenant who was gradually disappearing into the darkness. His eyes flashed with a hint of mockery, and with a shake of his body, he turned into specks of starlight and disappeared into the heavens and earth. This was an ability that he had obtained from visualizing the stellar chart. It was not very useful and could only temporarily project Lin Yuan into an area illuminated by starlight. However, Lin Yuan could not see what was happening there and could only hear what was being said there. Therefore, Lin Yuan was basically relying on the image created by his sense of smell to communicate with the other party. If the distance was out of the range of the image created by his sense of smell, then Lin Yuan could only play along with the other party. Moreover, a projection was just a projection and could not come into contact with anything. Even if it received a blow, it would dissipate immediately. Therefore, to Lin Yuan, this ability was really not very useful. Have you confirmed the identity of the other party? Lei Fan turned his head sideways to look at Lin Yuan, and asked again. When he left his family, he thought that the northern frontier and the outer regions of the Hengduan Mountains were just a small piece of land, and could only be used as a springboard for him. But after entering this territory, Lei Fan realized that his previous view was completely wrong. If he continued to have such thoughts of playing games, he might end up like Su Wu one day. I'm not sure yet. However, that fellow has been followed. Lin Yuan's strange-colored eyes did not have any ripples, and he just replied calmly. What he had said before, other than some reasonable guesses, was basically just to trick the other party. After all, the Xiong Warmi was fighting with the northern frontier's guards outside. Not only did a lieutenant not participate in the battle, he was even hiding in his own tent to study the battle sand table. This was the biggest factor that Lin Yuan was able to confirm the other party's identity. After all, this fellow's actions were completely different from a lieutenant who only knew how to charge into the enemy's ranks and gain battle merits to see if he could improve further. It was just that his last words were to make the other party take the initiative to bring his demonic beasts to the think tank. No matter how good the other party's mental fortitude was, they would still panic under such circumstances. It was just like if someone told you that your safe had been broken open, even if you knew that your safe was well preserved and had a very high level of security, you would still subconsciously panic. Moreover, under this feeling of panic, you would run to the place where your safe was stored to take a look. Only after confirming that it was safe would you heave a sigh of relief. Lin Yuan wanted to be the one who told him that the safe had been broken open. This way, the other party would take the initiative to bring Lin Yuan's informants to find out his accomplices. And among these people, most of them should be the brains who had helped him fill in the gaps in this operation plan. If it was a group of spies similar to the embroidered guard or soldiers captured from the front line, Lin Yuan really had no interest in interrogating them. But for a group of think tanks, Lin Yuan knew very well that as long as he used a little means, there would be people among these guys who could not bear to stand up and tell him everything they knew. After all, they were smart people. In the eyes of these third-rate strategists who thought themselves to be smart, other than their own lives, the lives of others were just bargaining chips. Even if the organization behind them was incomparably terrifying, as long as Lin Yuan didn't want to get any crucial information out of them, he could squeeze out everything they knew bit by bit like squeezing toothpaste. Not cooperating? That didn't matter. Of course, it was impossible to send them back to be tortured. Lin Yuan wouldn't do such a degrading thing. However, for these people who had already revealed some secrets but were unwilling to continue cooperating, Lin Yuan's choice was to directly let them go. For all the powers in the Tianwu continent, the greatest taboo was for their own members to reveal some secrets of their organization to others. Thus, once they left Lin Yuan's protection, these people's fates wouldn't be good. Lin Yuan's mood also relaxed a little after he grasped these guys tightly. At the same time, the Northern Frontier's Guard Corps had already completely suppressed Xiong Wujuan. Under the continuous attacks, Xiong Wujuan was like a deflated balloon. He didn't even have the slightest thought of rebounding. There were even some mercenaries who tore off their own identity as Xiong Wujuan's side and took the initiative to join the Northern Frontiers Guard Corps' follow-up cleanup plan. The destruction of more than 3 million people, even for the huge Shenwu dynasty, was not a small loss. After all, other than the battle with the two great empires, the previous battle between the Shenwu dynasty and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas didn't even have such a large-scale battle. Even the entire South Sea battlefield didn't have more than 3 million people. Brothers, we won. The city lord, who was leading the charge, cut down the flag beside him with his sword. At the same time, he heavily punched his chest with his right fist, and at the same time, he let out a loud roar from his mouth. More than 600,000 people defeated more than 3 million people. What kind of glorious battle record was this? He personally led the troops to such a battle record. If there was a list of famous generals in the Tianwu continent, the city lord even believed that he could directly enter the top 10. The explosive strength of both sides was different. The Northern Frontiers Guard Corps had a perfect command system. Being able to suppress the Xiong Wujuan was also within Lin Yuan's expectations. However, Lin Yuan completely didn't expect that the Xiong Wujuan would be so weak after splitting up the troops. The commanders of the various troops were simply unwilling to cooperate with their brother troops. Almost all of them were fighting on their own. More than 3 million people were surrounded by more than 600,000 people, and even gradually nibbled away at them. This kind of almost impossible tactical attack was actually completed. This also made Lin Yuan once again understand the importance of only having one voice in a force. Because the current him was far from safe. The forces around him seemed strong, but other than Mo Luo and this batch of demonic beasts created by the system, and Wan Yu who was forced to live under his command due to the pressure brought by the Lord, Lin Yuan basically didn't have many of his own subordinates. If something were to happen to him, he was afraid that everything that he had painstakingly built up would instantly collapse in an instant. There wouldn't even be a trace of protection left for him. He had to get rid of those strange voices before his enemies discovered his fatal weakness. Chapter 293. The Northern Frontier was a battlefield with millions of people. It wasn't a big battlefield, but it wasn't small either. Therefore, the Shenwu dynasty had been secretly paying attention to the situation of this battle. Even though the embroidered uniform guards were almost wiped out by Lin Yuan, Lei Qiusheng was still able to accurately grasp the changes in the Northern Frontier battlefield. Therefore, not long after the Xiong Wujuan's crushing defeat, it caused a huge uproar in the imperial capital of the Shenwu dynasty. The aristocratic families began to covet the considerable income of the Northern Frontier every year. They knew very well that if they were in charge of the Northern Frontier, they wouldn't be able to allocate the resources of the entire Hengduan mountain range like Black Snake and allow all their partners to obtain what they wanted. Therefore, they were destined to be unable to do this business. However, this didn't stop the aristocratic families from becoming restless. Although there weren't many monopolies, it wasn't impossible for them to do it if they wanted to. Especially now that the Shenwu dynasty's vitality had been greatly damaged, it was impossible for them not to have any thoughts about it. Although there were many aristocratic families in the Shenwu dynasty and the power they held wasn't weak, no one dared to provoke the emperor god. After all, there were many examples. Even if the descendants of the Lei family did such a thing, Lei Qiusheng definitely wouldn't let them off easily. But now, a successful example had appeared. The Xiong Wujuan's army of more than 3 million people was already the largest military force that the Shenwu dynasty could mobilize. If they were to mobilize a permanent army similar to the Xiong Wujuan's army and march towards the northern frontier, then the other battlefields of the Shenwu dynasty might directly collapse. In addition, the Shenwu dynasty was currently at war everywhere. Every time a war report came back, it would constantly say that the war was in a stalemate. Every time a list of casualties was sent back along with grief, it would also force the emperor god to take out a large sum of money from the national treasury for the families of the deceased to ensure that they could live peacefully for the rest of their lives. Not to mention organizing an army similar to the Xiong Wujuan's army, even if they used the most inferior equipment, the Shenwu dynasty really couldn't afford it. This also meant that they had more room to maneuver. As long as they didn't do anything too overboard, even if they secretly occupied some territory or monopolized some business, the Shinwu dynasty would turn a blind eye to their overstepping their boundaries. The demonic beasts in the northern frontier hadn't been dealt with yet. How could they have the time to deal with these aristocratic families? It wasn't just the aristocratic families in the Shinwu dynasty who were thinking about this. Similarly, Lei Qiusheng, who had always harbored the intention to kill Black Snake, couldn't help but start to ponder at this moment. Was his attitude towards Black Snake really wrong? The failure to quell the rebellion in the northern frontier meant that the royal family's control over the Shinwu dynasty's territory had greatly decreased. Although Lei Qiusheng still had the confidence to get the Shinwu dynasty back on the right track, that would be a matter of a few years later. With Black Snake's current growth speed, how terrifying would Black Snake be in a few years' time? Zhang Xiu, what do you think? Lei Qiusheng's gaze fell on Zhang Xiu. At this moment, Zhang Xiu, who had killed countless people and controlled the largest spy agency in the Shinwu dynasty, was sitting lazily at a table in the imperial study. He didn't have the feeling of a subject meeting the emperor at all. Instead, it was like two old friends who hadn't seen each other for many years were chatting. Zhang Xiu shrugged his shoulders, and a light flashed in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "In my humble opinion, why don't the emperor issue an imperial edict and let the lord of Shunning City be conferred the title of king? This way, not only can we ensure that the northern frontier is still under the Shinwu dynasty's control, but even if Black Snake wants to eliminate existences that threaten him, he will have to consider Hu Yan's identity as the northern frontier king. Once he takes action, we will have a reason to call on the other 6 empires to suppress Black Snake together." Black Snake's Fey monopoly business was too popular, so popular that everyone wanted a share of the profits. However, Black Snake's Fey monopoly wasn't only able to generate huge profits, but it was also a huge threat to the Shinwu dynasty. If they didn't get rid of Black Snake's Fey monopoly business as soon as possible, even Lei Qiusheng would have to speak to Black Snake submissively. Otherwise, once Black Snake cut off the Shinwu dynasty's Fey supply, they wouldn't be able to do anything. The entire Shinwu dynasty's national strength would be greatly weakened. Conferred the title of king. Lei Qiusheng's face showed that he wanted to say something, but he stopped himself. Back then, he had been able to be placed in an important position under the condemned Star Sea because the two of them had a strong desire to control their own things. Thus, when Black Snake tried to take control of the northern frontier, Lei Qiusheng's first reaction was to mobilize the only troops he could mobilize and directly suppress Black Snake in the northern frontier. In the end, the rebellion had failed. Not only did he lose the only military force he could mobilize, but he also had to admit that the northern frontier had a special status in the Shinwu dynasty. This sullen feeling made him extremely uncomfortable, but he had to admit that this was the best way to deal with it at the moment. Zhang Xiu's lips curled up slightly, and he sneered. Being conferred the title of king is just the beginning. Power is a fatal poppy. Once Hu Yan accepts the title of Northern Frontier King, he will want more, such as hereditary succession. We only need to stay in the imperial capital and we can watch Hu Yan fight with Black Snake for power. Isn't that perfect? If a person had enough merits, they could indeed be conferred the title of king. However, according to the laws of the Tianwu continent, the title of vassal king could not be hereditary. After every generation, the title would automatically drop by 1 level. If they could obtain the imperial edict of hereditary succession, then every generation of the Hu family in the northern frontier would become the king of the northern frontier. A title might not seem like much, but to an aristocratic family like the Hu family, it was a fatal temptation. What if Hu Yan doesn't accept it? Lei Qiusheng's eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule, but he deliberately asked this question. It is impossible for Hu Yan not to accept it. Black Snake wants to get rid of him. I can see that, so can he. If we confer the title of king of the northern frontier to him, it is not just to give him honor, but to him, it is also a life-saving talisman. Zhang Xiu took a deep breath and said slowly. Furthermore, even if Hu Yan wants to die, we can just confer the title to someone else. Even if they are not willing to accept it, Black Snake will force them to accept it. After all, the structure of the 7 great empires has not changed for so many years. Even if we are willing, the other 6 great empires will not allow another new power to appear in the Tianwu continent. Chapter 294. 4 days later. A piece of shocking news came out from the Shenwu dynasty's imperial capital. Lei Qiusheng, who was used to being overbearing and did not even give face to the top powers of the Tianwu continent, was actually terrified. An imperial edict conferring the title of King of the Northern Frontier was sent out from the imperial capital. It only took 7 days for it to reach the mayor's mansion in Shunning City. Even though the Shenwu dynasty lost to the Northern Frontier Guard Corps, it was still one of the 7 great empires of the Tianwu continent. The imperial edict conferring the title of king was still valid. As long as Hu Yan accepted the edict, all the previous grievances between the two sides could be written off. The Northern Frontier would still be under the rule of the Shenwu dynasty, but they would still have the right to listen to orders. For an overbearing emperor like Lei Qiusheng, this imperial edict was already the biggest concession he could make. After all, once Hu Yan accepted the edict and became the king of the Northern Frontier, although the Shenwu dynasty still had ways to kill him, but at least for 10 years, as long as Hu Yan did not do anything excessive, the Shenwu dynasty would not be able to touch a single hair of his. Moreover, the king of the Northern Frontier could establish his own small court in the Northern Frontier. Except for the Shenwu dynasty, it was just like a new great empire. In terms of power, there was no difference at all. The only difference was the size of the territory. To an emperor in the Tianwu continent, a vassal was not like a vassal, but an ally with a cooperative relationship. Of course, this kind of monstrous power could only be maintained for 1 generation. When Hu Yan's son took over the banner of the Hu family from his hands, his title would only be duke. Although he would still be very noble, he would no longer have the power to establish a small court that was completely controlled by him. Otherwise, if the Shenwu dynasty found out, the Shenwu dynasty could directly turn him into a traitor. However, to Hu Yan, it didn't matter how long he could maintain his power. He only wanted to know if he should accept the imperial edict. This question was like a sharp blade hanging over his head. If it was the Hu Yan of the past, he would have been dancing with joy. But now, he had to consider the black snake's thoughts before doing anything. If the black snake wasn't willing, then he might inexplicably die of a cold tomorrow after accepting the edict. A life-saving charm? Hu Yan had indeed thought of this, but after calming down, he gave up on this idea. The black serpent never followed any rules when doing things. As a demonic beast, the black serpent indirectly controlled the Northern Frontier. It completely ignored the unwritten rules between the 7 dynasties and the Hengduan Mountains. Therefore, to the black serpent, a mere king of the Northern Frontier could be killed as it wished. Would the Shenwu dynasty dare to fall out with it at this time? If the Shenwu dynasty had the ability to fall out with the black serpent, then this imperial edict wouldn't have been sent to the Northern Frontier. At this time, countless pairs of eyes in the Northern Frontier were fixed on Hu Yan and the entire Hu family. After all, before the imperial edict appeared, everyone was on the same side. The 7 city lords on the border worked together with the black serpent and became a thorn in the side of the Shenwu dynasty. However, at this moment, the status of the remaining 6 city lords didn't change, but Hu Yan had a new choice. Should he accept or give up? It had to be said that Shen Xiu was a top-notch expert at playing tricks. When Zhang Shi appeared, it had already caused everyone in the Northern Frontier to panic. They were afraid that when they woke up, the leader of the embroidered uniform guard with brilliant battle records would be standing at their bedside and looking at them with a smile that wasn't a smile. And now, although Zhang Xiu didn't take the time to personally go to the Northern Frontier, he came up with a second strategy. On the surface, it seemed like he was admitting defeat and conciliating, but it caused the originally united Northern Frontier city lords to have ulterior motives. The originally deep-rooted alliance collapsed at this moment, and everyone began to suspect and be on guard against each other. If the Shenwu dynasty still had the strength to attack at this time, although the Northern Frontier Guard Corps would still gather, their speed would definitely not be as fast as before. Just like Lei Qiusheng admitting defeat, the arrogant and despotic Black Snake actually remained silent on this matter. Not to mention taking the initiative to speak up. Even when Hu Yan sent people to search the northern frontier, they still couldn't find Black Snake. It was as if he wanted to see Hu Yan's choice. The mental torture was almost driving Hu Yan crazy. However, in the huge northern frontier, there wasn't even a single person who could help him resolve this problem. Just as Hu Yan was vexed, the other 6 city lords had already secretly gathered together. Lei Fan tidied up his collar and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, the Imperial Edict of Bestowment is just a scheme of the Shinwu dynasty. As long as we don't openly rebel, the other 6 dynasties will be happy to see it happen. After all, the existence of our northern frontier has greatly hindered the Shinwu dynasty's recovery speed. Even if we become the king of the northern frontier, we are still the subjects of the Shinwu dynasty. When the time comes, if the imperial capital sends people to ask us to pay taxes, then there will be a huge expenditure on our account." A city lord with a scholarly look narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Although I don't know how Lord Black Demon Emperor came up with those reforms and policies, but in my opinion, Lord Demon Emperor's merit is now, and the benefits are in the future. The only flaw is that our current situation is too far away from Lord Demon Emperor's vision. We need to invest a huge amount of money and resources to implement the reforms. Therefore, I think that we should avoid unnecessary expenditure if we can." A middle-aged city lord with a mustache nodded and continued the conversation. "Moreover, we have enough strength, which is why the Shinwu dynasty wants to bestow the title of king to the northern frontier. However, if we reject it now, the other 6 dynasties might even secretly give us some support. On the contrary, if we give up now, the advantages will outweigh the disadvantages." From the words and actions of the 6 city lords, they didn't put the Shinwu dynasty in their eyes at all. They didn't have the panic and fear when Xiong Wu's army arrived at their city a few days ago. They even resisted the Shinwu dynasty from the inside out. Although they knew that their existence was the biggest obstacle to the Black Snake's establishment, no matter how nice the Shinwu dynasty made it sound, once the Shinwu dynasty recovered from this turmoil, they would definitely not let these traitors off. Otherwise, wouldn't anyone be able to be a traitor? Under the Black Snake's command, as long as they were careful, they wouldn't lose their lives because of a small matter. However, under the rule of the Shinwu dynasty, they were all unforgivable people. If they made a slight mistake, not only would they lose their lives, they might even bring disaster to their entire family. Chapter 295. Since everyone's opinion is the same, then we will not delay any longer. The 6 of us will go directly to Shunning City to tell City Lord Hu of our opinion. After all, if the decision is made like this, then the longer we delay this matter, the more disadvantageous it will be for us. Lei Fan made the final decision, ending this discussion where everyone was of the same opinion. Now, all the big and small forces within the Shinwu dynasty were on the lookout. Once the northern frontier showed a clear attitude of refusing to be conferred the title of king, then very quickly, the aristocratic families and even the sects would take action. Taking advantage of the fact that the Shinwu dynasty was temporarily unable to suppress them, they would quickly divide up the territories of the Shinwu dynasty and directly reduce the influence of the Lei imperial family to the lowest. But if the northern frontier accepted the title of king, it would be a heart-strengthening drug for the Shinwu dynasty. After all, once the 2 sides started to cooperate, then the existence that jumped out and tried to eat the meat would become the opponent of the northern frontier. Otherwise, how could the Shinwu dynasty write off the things that happened in the northern frontier? The Shinwu dynasty indeed did not have the spare strength to suppress them. But, the northern frontier had them. Even if the demonic beasts in the northern frontier could not fight, the 600,000 northern frontier guards were still a strong force. In addition, many of these 600,000 people were veterans of the previous 7 border cities. They had battled with the demonic beasts for many years. In terms of combat experience, they were definitely not inferior to any of the elite troops of the Shinwu dynasty. Crushing those young masters raised by the aristocratic families would not be a problem at all. And the longer the northern frontier dragged on, the more fickle the people would be. Some people would even think that the northern frontier was hesitating. Even if they rejected the enlistment of the Shinwu dynasty in the end, the decision-makers of the northern frontier had also hesitated. Who knew when they would directly join forces with the Shinwu dynasty and start to deal with them? The longer this dragged on, the more potential allies the northern frontier would lose. Yo, everyone is here? What are you guys discussing? Suddenly, Lin Yuan's voice rang out from the gathering hall of the 6 city lords. The 6 city lords looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. After all, they had privately discussed this matter for the sake of forming a united front. However, before the discussion ended, no one dared to say that they were certain of the result. Even though they knew that joining the Shinwu dynasty would not bring them any benefits, working under the Black Snake was also extremely dangerous. Furthermore, working under a demonic beast would make it difficult for them to move around the Tianwu continent in the future. Therefore, the 6 city lords all chose to conceal the news. After disguising themselves many times, they quietly gathered in this secret room to discuss. No one had expected that the Black Snake would be able to find them so accurately. No one was stupid enough to believe that the Black Snake had just arrived here and did not know anything about what they were discussing. There were even a few city lords who had a layer of cold sweat on their backs. In truth, their hearts were more inclined towards the Shinwu dynasty. However, everyone's opinions were important, and under the circumstances, they could only agree with a few words. They did not expect that the Black Snake would be able to hear their conversation. At that moment, they were already thinking in their hearts. If the result of their discussion was to betray the Black Snake, then at this moment. After that, they did not dare to think any further. However, there was no doubt that the current them had just brushed shoulders with death. Lei Fan's mouth curled up slightly as he laughed bitterly. Aren't you asking the obvious? Of course, it's the conferment of the Northern Frontier King. We intend to reject the goodwill of the Shinwu dynasty. This way, we will be safer. No need. Lin Yuan shook his huge snake head and a strange look flashed past his eyes as he said solemnly. The Shinwu dynasty no longer has the time to care about us. Compared to us, they have an even stronger enemy. As his voice fell, the eyes of the 6 city lords all fell on Lin Yuan. The Shinwu dynasty's biggest enemies now were the Qingjiang dynasty and the Shuangjin dynasty. As long as the Shinwu dynasty was willing to admit defeat in this war and cede some land to the 2 dynasties, the war would soon be over. Then why did the Black Snake say that an even stronger enemy had appeared in the Shinwu dynasty? Could it be that the power behind the Shinwu dynasty could not take this lying down and had completely shed all pretense of cordiality and was going to fight against the Shinwu dynasty personally? That should not be so, right? The Qingping king has rebelled. Lin Yuan paused as Huanhuan said a piece of important news. The Qingping king, Lei Qiuming, was Lei Qiusheng's twin brother. Whether it was in terms of scheming or cultivation aptitude, he was not inferior to Lei Qiusheng. If it was not because Lei Qiusheng was deeply trusted by Jiao Xinghai and received the cultivation resources of the Shinwu dynasty, which allowed him to step into the Heaven Star realm earlier, it was hard to say whether the throne of the Shinwu dynasty would be Lei Qiusheng or Lei Qiusheng. In addition, even if Lei Qiuming did not sit on the throne, he relied on his own abilities to gather an army of about 3 million people. Before the Shinwu dynasty was established, he used an irresistible force to take down the southern part of the Wanjian dynasty. Later on, he was even conferred the title of Qingping king. Although his military power and territory had been weakened by a lot, Lei Qiuming's rallying power within the Shinwu dynasty was still very terrifying. He could pull out an army of 1 million people at any time and was seen as one of the biggest security threats of the Shinwu dynasty. Qingping king, shouldn't be that bad, right? The city lord narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, if Qingping king wants to rebel, why wait until today? If Lei Qiuming really had disloyal thoughts, he would have rebelled long ago. It would not be the turn of the northern frontier to make the first move. Previously, when the situation was good, he did not rebel. Why would he suddenly have such thoughts now? It's true. It's not that Lei Qiuming wants to rebel, it's just that he has no other choice. After all, although Lei Qiuming has more than 10 children in his life, he only has one son who can be the successor. And at this moment, his son is sitting here with all of you. Tell me, how can Lei Qiuming not panic? Lin Yuan said in a mocking tone. As the saying goes, no one knows a son better than his father. When the imperial edict was issued, Lei Chuming had already guessed that even if Hu Yen was willing to accept this edict, Lei Fan would still oppose it with all his might. In addition, there was a black snake with unknown intentions lurking at the side. So, rejecting the conferment was definitely something that would happen sooner or later. When something happened at the northern frontier, the Xinwu dynasty did not have the spare energy to deal with it. But when there were internal problems, the Xinwu dynasty was still able to solve them quickly. After all, the northern frontier was still a new mess. But those vassals and aristocratic families were all hidden dangers that had existed for a long time. It was impossible that the Xinwu dynasty did not have a backup plan. Chapter 296. According to the laws of the Xinwu dynasty, the heirs of the vassal kings were not allowed to remain in the vassal king's fief. They would all be sent to the imperial capital to receive education. From a young age, they would be instilled with the thought of being loyal to the imperial family, to the king. At the same time, this was to prevent the vassal kings from rebelling. After all, the heirs were all in the hands of the vassal kings. You couldn't possibly become immortal and immortal. Wouldn't it still have to be passed down to the next generation? It was very difficult for powerful cultivators to give birth to heirs, especially those who were intelligent, suitable to be groomed as heirs. To these vassal kings, that was an existence more important than their own lifeblood. Lei Chuming may have over 10 children, but Lei Chuming already had 3 concubines, not to mention those concubines, and other reproductive tools. It was said that the beauties raised in Lei Chuming's residence were not much inferior to Lei Chuxing's imperial harem. But Lei Chuming was after all powerful, so he was given special treatment. Usually, he would stay in the imperial capital, and without a suitable reason, he would not take even half a step out of the city gates. After all, as a vassal king with over 1 million mercenaries, Lei Chuxing could not possibly not be on guard against him. So he could either send his son to the imperial capital, or stay in the imperial capital himself. There was no other choice. If there was any deviation, what awaited the Azure Cape royal territory would be the thunderous fury of the Xinwu dynasty. This time, after the imperial edict of coronation had been sent to the northern frontier, he had not received a reply from the northern frontier, so Lei Chuming had panicked. It did not matter that Lei Fan had humiliated the Xinwu dynasty, as the Xinwu dynasty had only wanted to give it a try. But to Lei Chuming, this was equivalent to being roasted on a fire by his own son. Lei Chuxing had suffered such a setback in the northern frontier, and his first reaction was that the northern frontier no longer belonged to him. Then, as Lei Fan's father, Lei Chuxing would definitely be the most resolute ally of the northern frontier. With the intention of eliminating all hidden dangers, Lei Chuxing would definitely not give Lei Chuxing a way out. Having thought this through, while the Xinwu dynasty was still waiting for the reply from the northern frontier, Lei Chuming had secretly slipped out of the imperial capital under the cover of a group of men of sacrifice, and immediately activated his own rallying power to gather his old subordinates. Although the Xinwu dynasty's national power was not what it used to be, but it had still allowed Lei Chuming to gather over 300,000 elite soldiers and strong generals. Moreover, he had unilaterally announced that the Azure Cape royal territory would be sealed off, and would not be participating in any operations of the Xinwu dynasty for the time being. Such an action, to call it an independent declaration of war, was not an exaggeration. So, to pin the label of rebellion on Lei Chuming's head was not an injustice at all. After listening to Lin Yuan's narration, the corners of the eyes of all the city lords twitched slightly, and their gazes fell upon the calm face of Lei Fan. Although they had long known that this newly appointed city lord of the mountain-blocking city had an exceedingly high background, but they only knew that his surname was Lei, and that he was considered a relative of the imperial family. But no one would have thought that Lei Fan would be the only son of the Azure Cape king. To them, the position of city lord was already the pinnacle of power, but to Lei Fan, it was just a game. Even if Lei Fan did not do anything, he would still be able to inherit the throne of the Azure Cape king in the future, becoming an existence that they could only look up to in this lifetime, and when they talked about him, their tone would be filled with respect. But who would have thought that, a relative of the imperial family, who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, would be the existence that was most resistant to cooperating with the Shinwu dynasty. Lei Fan was also having a headache, and he stretched out his hand to rub the space between his eyebrows, and said in a deep voice, "It's all right, don't bother about it. My father just likes to cause trouble. Don't be fooled by how he is making a ruckus now. If things really go south, he might even be the vanguard of the crusade against the northern frontier. Nobody knows a son better than his father. Nobody knows a father better than his son." Lei Qiuming and Lei Qiusheng were blood brothers, and had the disposition of an ambitious and ruthless person. Now that he had the chance to take another step forward, Lei Qiuming would naturally grab hold of this opportunity. Although part of the reason was to protect his own life, but one could not deny his ambition. If not, he would have obediently stayed in the imperial capital. Could it be that Lei Qiusheng really dared to kill Lei Qiuming as a sacrifice? To put it bluntly, the current Shinwu dynasty could not withstand too many twists and turns, and Lei Qiuming's death was obviously beyond the limits of what the Shinwu dynasty could withstand. After all, he was a man who could casually summon an army of hundreds of thousands with just a wave of his hand. But as an ambitious and ruthless person, he would not place too much importance on relationships. If things really went south, Lei Qiuming would undoubtedly choose to shake hands and make peace with Lei Qiusheng, and give up on this son that he doted on so much. After all, Lei Qiuming was still in his prime, and as a Heaven Dipper realm cultivator, he could at least live for a few more 100 years. If his son died, he could just give birth to a few more. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes turned, and he did not deny Lei Fan's thoughts. Such was the nature of ambitious and ruthless people. Asking them to give up what they already had would cause them heartache. But if they could obtain something better, these ambitious and ruthless people would not hesitate to exchange, as if they did not have any feelings for what they had in the past. There were quite a number of self-proclaimed ambitious and ruthless people, but those who could truly be considered as such, Lin Yuan had only met two. One was his blood feud in his previous life. Lin Yuan was not willing to recall the details, but if he could do it all over again, he would never make an enemy out of such an existence. But since things had already come to this, even if Lin Yuan had come to a different world, he would not rest until the other party was dead. The other person who could be considered as an ambitious and ruthless person was the Beast Lord Kirin, who had suppressed the Hengduan Mountains for hundreds of years. When he was young, he had even plotted against the 7 great empires. This must have happened after the Wanjian dynasty was destroyed, and the remnants of the Jiao clan became a chess piece in the hands of the Beast Lord Kirin to restrict the Shinwu dynasty. Other than the Beast Lord Kirin himself, no one knew how many other similar arrangements he had prepared. Until now, although the Beast Lord Kirin's strength was not enough, he still had the aura of a king. From the way he chose his successor, for the sake of the stability of the Hengduan Mountains, he really did not hesitate to kill off all the other outstanding juniors. It might seem like a loss, but it would allow the Beast King to develop steadily. Alright, let's get back to the topic. Lin Yuan looked around and said expressionlessly, "I don't care about your opinions. I'm only here to inform you of one thing. The northern frontier has accepted the imperial edict. From today onwards, the 7 border cities will be ruled by Lei Fan. I only have one request. No matter what happens, the secret agents, officials, and army of the Shinwu dynasty are not allowed to infiltrate the northern frontier. If I find any of them, all of you will be punished." The city lord stood up abruptly, and there was a trace of shock in his eyes. After a moment of silence, the city lord clenched his teeth and said, "Demon Emperor, you should be very clear that accepting this imperial edict will do us more harm than good. Am I right?" Chapter 297. That's right. Lin Yuan nodded sincerely and didn't deny it. Then why? The city lord with a thunderous face almost roared out loud. As the commander who had led the team to defeat the Xiong Wujuan, the city lord was undoubtedly the hero of the northern frontier. His reputation and status had greatly improved. However, this glory in the eyes of the people of the northern frontier was an unforgivable misdeed in the eyes of the Shinwu dynasty. The enemy's hero was the enemy's enemy. The city lord didn't even dare to imagine how he, the hero of the northern frontier, would be dealt with if the Shinwu dynasty really survived this hurdle. Because not only can the Shinwu dynasty not afford to fight, but I also can't afford to fight. Lin Yuan turned his heterochromatic eyes and looked at the city lord. He said in a deep voice, "There is still a faction secretly watching us. If the world is peaceful, they won't have an excuse to make a move. However, once the situation is chaotic, can you guarantee that those aristocratic families will target the Shinwu dynasty?" The human heart was the most sinister thing in this world. The profits of the northern frontier's monopoly on Fays were too great. Even if there was a certain difficulty in operating it, it wasn't impossible to replicate. Lin Yuan secretly had the Demon the Arch Association to patrol the northern frontier. In the light, he had the 7 city lords overseeing. He also had the Hengduan mountain range backing him. Naturally, he could easily do this business well. However, to some truly powerful aristocratic families, their influence might not be inferior to Lin Yuan. Even if they couldn't circulate the goods of the 7 dynasties like Lin Yuan, just the monopoly of the Fays that targeted the Shinwu dynasty was enough to make countless people jealous. Now, the Shinwu dynasty's situation was complicated. At first glance, it looked like a mess, and no one was willing to take over. However, the northern frontier was different. Apart from facing the threat of the Fey beasts, it was no different from a huge gold mine. The cooperation between Lin Yuan, the Demon the Arch Association, and the 7 border cities was also reminding these people that although the Fey beasts hated humans, it wasn't impossible to bribe them. As long as enough benefits were given, it wasn't impossible to completely replicate Lin Yuan's current business model. Let alone the human side. It was the same even within the Hengduan mountain range. God knew how many Fey beasts were coveting Lin Yuan's position. If it wasn't for Subaru, the Fey beast clans would have started suppressing Lin Yuan. In order to maintain a good relationship with Subaru, even if Subaru didn't take the initiative to speak up for Lin Yuan still gave 20% of the profits to Subaru. That is also true, as a native of the northern frontier. As a native of the northern frontier. As a native of that. Me too. Lei Fan nodded his head as well. He knew very well who his backer was. Seeing his ally betraying him, Lei Gong's city lord felt uncomfortable in his heart. But on the surface, he could only sigh helplessly and said, "Yes, Wang Gang accepts the order." That's all. Meeting adjourned. Lin Yuan nodded his head and took the lead to wriggle his snake body and left. The next day, almost everyone who had their eyes on the northern frontier had entered a state of silence. After all, no one would have thought that the northern frontier who had the absolute advantage would actually choose to accept the Shinwu dynasty's imperial edict of bestowing king, just that the one to be bestowed the title was changed from Hu Yen to Lei Fan. To the Lei royal family, it was a good thing for their bloodline to become the king of the northern frontier. So, before Lei Qiusheng had even expressed his agreement, the imperial clan court, the various vassals, and even some of the side branches of the Lei family had all expressed their agreement to Lei Qiusheng in different ways. Lei Qiusheng, who had only wanted to give it a try and did not expect to succeed, was also slightly stunned. But very quickly, he smiled and read through the memorials and agreed to the northern frontier's small request. "Zhang Xiu, who do you think is behind this?" Lei Qiusheng put down the memorials in his hands and let out a long breath. He smiled and asked. Zhang Xiu put his hands behind his back and his face, which was fairer than a woman's, did not show the slightest emotion. He just lowered his head and silently wiped the bloodstains on his hands. Without raising his head, he said, "Your Majesty, once the northern frontier's problem is solved, no matter how bold the southern and central clans are, they would not dare to imitate the northern frontier's actions. But, this problem is solved. Don't you want to solve our current problem?" Although Zhang Xiu's expression did not change when he spoke, Lei Qiusheng could still hear a hint of helplessness in Zhang Xiu's tone. He could not help but laugh heartily. "Ha ha ha, trouble? What trouble? Isn't it just a group of hopping grasshoppers after autumn? Without the support of the Hengduan mountain range, how many days can the Jiao clan last? Solving the northern frontier's problem is our current problem. Now that the problem has been solved, I am naturally happy. At this point, the smile on Lei Qiusheng's face gradually disappeared. He said in a deep voice, if the Jiao clan wants to continue existing in the Shenwu dynasty, the biggest problem that needs to be solved is to re-establish contact with the Hengduan mountain range and urgently mobilize a batch of resources to replenish themselves. The Black Snake and its Demon Emperor Association hate the Jiao clan the most. Next, we just have to watch the internal strife between our two great enemies. Zhang Xiu's mouth also curved into a smile. The Jiao clan that had been entangled with the embroidered uniform guard for many years would soon vanish. He was naturally the happiest. In addition, other than the Jiao clan, he also found the Black Snake an interesting prey. Even if the Jiao clan was uprooted, he did not have to worry about being bored in the future. In fact, compared to knowing the Jiao clans, however, you should also hurry up with the Black Snake's matter. The smile on Lei Qiusheng's face completely disappeared. He once again resumed the appearance of a cold monarch. He said in a deep voice, as long as this demon emperor is not dug out, it will be like a thorn in my heart. You can directly kill the Black Snake. If there is really a demon emperor behind the scenes, it will naturally appear or throw out a new smoke bomb. If there is no demon emperor, then get rid of the Black Snake as soon as possible so that I can sleep soundly and not spend every day in anxiety. Your Majesty, I know what to do about the Black Snake's matter. Zhang Xiu bowed slightly and rejected Lei Qiusheng's suggestion that would ruin his fun. He tilted his head and said, Your Majesty, you should pay more attention to the Qing Peng King now, shouldn't you? Chapter 298. Unexpectedly, the northern frontier chose to accept the title of king, causing a lot of people to be dissatisfied. At the same time, it also caused most of the restless forces to once again cease their banners and cease their drums. They no longer dared to challenge the prestige of the Shenwu dynasty. After all, at this time, if anyone wanted to become the second northern frontier, it was possible that not only the Xiongwu army would be mobilized. Based on the temperament of the Shenwu emperor, if you dared to make things difficult for him, he would dare to drag you down with him. Time passed bit by bit. Lin Yuan, who chose to keep the peace, did not continue the plan of sealing off the Shenwu dynasty's spiritual items. Of course, when the spiritual items of the Hengduan Mountains passed through the northern frontier, the price would still be 30% higher than the original price. However, this was already a very satisfactory price. It was much better than the previous exorbitant price of spiritual items. Even cultivators from ordinary families could grit their teeth and buy some spiritual items to assist their cultivation. Another month passed by. The progress bar of Lin Yuan's transformation into a flood dragon successfully reached 99.9%, and then it stopped moving. Lin Yuan was almost used to the way the system cheated him. Based on the current situation, if he wanted to completely transform into a flood dragon, he would have to do some special mission to push the last 0.1% of the progress bar. However, this mission was not directly released by the system. It should have some trigger conditions. Ever since the progress bar was stuck 3 days ago, Lin Yuan had been staying in Shunning City thinking about what the trigger conditions for this flood dragon transformation mission were. What did he have to find, where did he have to go, or who did he have to meet? However, the system was not willing to give any hint. In any case, it would not do anything related to humans. However, to be honest, although the system had done many immoral things, this was the first time it had done something so confusing. After all, it was normal for this kind of mission to not have a clear direction. However, if it did not even give a clue, then it was a bit too much. The Mountain Lord realm is indeed not that easy to enter. Lin Yuan faintly sighed. As a cheater with a system, all along, as long as he had enough attribute points, he would not need to be stuck at a bottleneck like other monsters or cultivators. But now, a bottleneck had indeed not appeared, but the system's mission was definitely more terrifying than a bottleneck. Although both required luck, the former at least gave him a direction, right? Thinking of this, Lin Yuan simply emptied his mind and began to think about some nonsense. Soon, Lin Yuan realized something. There was a clear boundary between realms in this world. The desolate demon realm, void underworld realm and above seemed to be bound by an invisible rule. They would almost never participate in any disputes between those of a lower realm, and they were usually in a state of seclusion. Strictly speaking, the number of such cultivators was not small. For example, the northern frontier had the former guardian of the northern frontier, Yan Xingqi, and Master Qiuan of the Freedom Courtyard. Perhaps there were some powerhouses that Lin Yuan had never seen before. However, just one of them had at least 2 void underworld realm cultivators. How many of such existences were there in the entire Tianwu continent? But what was strange was that in the 7 empires that were nominally at the top, the kings were generally in the airborne realm. It could even be said that heavenly strength realm kings like Jiu Xinghai and Lei Qiusheng were rare. As for kings above the heavenly strength realm, there had not been a single one since ancient times. This seemed to be some kind of rule. Who was the person who made the rules, and why did they make such rules? Ding, 3,500 meters to the west, a River Lord realm monster is approaching. Host, please be careful to avoid it. The system's notification sounded in Lin Yuan's ears, and it was as calm as ever. River Lord realm? Lin Yuan was slightly taken aback at first, but he quickly realized that this was probably another name for Mountain Lord realm monsters. Monsters on land were called Mountain Lords, and aquatic monsters were called River Lords. Lin Yuan had no intention of avoiding it at this moment. After all, the other party was only 1 realm higher than him. Even if he wasn't a match for it after activating the blood boil technique, escaping wouldn't be much of a problem. At this moment, Lin Yuan was thinking about whether he should be called a Mountain Lord or a River Lord if he broke through again. After all, water snakes were amphibious creatures. Was he supposed to call them Mountain and River Lords? Turtle, that was a bit domineering. Before Lin Yuan could recover from his blank state of mind, the River Lord realm monster in the system's notification had already appeared in front of Lin Yuan. The moment the other party appeared, Lin Yuan had already regained consciousness. Although he didn't want to admit it, Lin Yuan couldn't help but be on high alert. Although he didn't know what level this guy in front of him was at the River Lord realm, the pressure he gave off wasn't inferior in the slightest to Yan Xingqi, Master Qiuan, and other void realm cultivators. The old, weak, sick, and disabled people he had seen in Sumeru world couldn't compare at all. Black Snake, we meet again. The other party's figure was still flickering. Evidently, it was still moving at high speed, but it stopped steadily in front of Lin Yuan. This mysterious action caused Lin Yuan's eyes to narrow slightly. He began to think carefully. When had he ever seen a River Lord realm monster like this? After all, he had been reborn in this world for less than a year. Although he had experienced many things, he hadn't forgotten a single thing that was worth remembering. In addition, Lin Yuan didn't think that he had the right to look down on a River Lord realm monster. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember this unremarkable monster. When the River Lord realm monster saw Lin Yuan's expression, it immediately knew that Lin Yuan hadn't guessed who it was. A moment later, it stopped and squinted its eyes. Other than me, have you seen other demonic beasts of the Dragon Clan? As the other party stabilized itself, Lin Yuan quickly recalled that when he was still a Spirit Awakening realm monster, he had seen this River Lord realm monster. However, at that time, the system hadn't scanned its level. Now that Lin Yuan was strong enough, the system directly called it a River Lord realm monster. If Lin Yuan could improve further, the system would even be able to scan the other party's strength. Senior Ao Qian of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Lin Yuan lowered his head slightly to show his respect. Under the law of the jungle, the strong should always be respected. Ao Qian nodded slightly to show that she was very satisfied that the Black Snake could still remember her. After all, a Spirit Awakening realm monster's intelligence wasn't much better than that of an ordinary wild beast. Back then, it was already good enough that the Black Snake could communicate with her normally. As for being able to clearly remember what happened back then, it didn't have any expectations. Chapter 299. Very good, Black Snake. You really didn't disappoint me. No wonder you have the blood of the dragon clan in your body. Ao Qian smiled and said in a deep voice, I can feel that the blood in your body is very pure. It is gradually transforming your body, allowing you to be one step closer to the noble dragon clan. But now, there is a small accident. You are still unable to take the last step, right? Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes lit up. He had been thinking about why he had no clue about this special mission. But now it seemed that although this mission needed to be triggered, Lin Yuan didn't need to find it himself. As long as the time was right, the other party would send itself to him. Dog system, Daddy has wronged you. You have done something good this time. Please enlighten me, Senior. Lin Yuan took a deep breath and tried to calm his excited mood. But when he spoke, his voice was still trembling. The smile in Ao Qian's eyes deepened, but she didn't explain directly. Instead, she asked, Black Snake, do you know what the blood of the monster clan means to the monster clan? Lin Yuan didn't speak. After all, he didn't know anything about the power of the blood. After all, this kind of question, if it was in his previous life, would belong to the problem of genetics. Since ancient times, those who could achieve something in this field were undoubtedly the elites of the elites. They belonged to the type who lived in this world and the rest were just there to make up the numbers. Before Lin Yuan was reborn in this world, it was said that the direction of genetics research had already begun to break through to immortality. Yes, to the ancient people, immortality could only be achieved by gods. In the eyes of geneticists, it was completely possible to achieve through scientific means. Even if the technology was not mature, it was still possible to modify some genes and make humans immune to some diseases. But to put this problem on Lin Yuan, it was too difficult for him. Whether it was before or after the blood feud, the field he dabbled in had nothing to do with genetics. Demonic beasts are generally categorized into one big group by human beings. However, internally, demonic beasts are divided into three big groups: the sky, the land, and the sea. These three big groups are further divided into different small groups. However, it is indisputable that these three groups have their own leaders. For example, the Phoenix of the Sky group, the Dragon of the Sea group, and the Kirin of the Land group. The bloodline determined a demonic beast's appearance, innate talent, aptitude, and ability. A dragon race cub that didn't die prematurely could easily reach the level of a river master after entering the growth stage. Moreover, the innate talent and ability it awakened was far from what other races could compare to. However, for an ordinary demonic beast, even if it died of old age, whether it could become a river lord depended on its own luck. Reaching a higher cultivation level was even an extravagant hope. Thus, the power of a demonic beast's bloodline also determined the upper limit of a demonic beast's growth. Black Snake, among the countless monsters, you are undoubtedly one of the luckiest ones. This is because you were born with the bloodline of the dragon clan in your body, and the concentration is not low. Therefore, your growth speed is very amazing in the eyes of outsiders, but in our dragon clan, it is considered normal because all of this is given to you by your dragon clan bloodline. Seeing that Lin Yuan didn't speak, Ao Qian directly started to bluff him. Lin Yuan nodded his head cooperatively, and sneered in his heart. In less than a year, from a wild beast to the peak of the wisdom realm, if this speed was considered normal in the dragon palace of the four seas, then the system wouldn't say that there were only a few true dragons in the dragon palace of the four seas. He had already guessed what Ao Qian was up to. She wanted to use this opportunity to beat him up, and at the same time recruit him under the dragon palace of the four seas. After all, if it was Lin Yuan who did it himself, he wouldn't let go of a newly born genius who could stir up a storm in the sky martial continent and not be used by the dragon palace of the four seas. Faintly, Lin Yuan even felt a trace of danger. After all, if it was him who did this, he would first get familiar with the other party, and then throw out a certain amount of benefits to tempt the other party. If the other party was still stubborn, then Lin Yuan could only carry out the backup plan with the idea of destroying the other party if he couldn't get the other party. After thinking through this point, Lin Yuan's sense of danger became even more intense. Black Snake, the power of the bloodline in your body has stopped transforming, and it's not your problem. Almost all of us dragon bloodline demonic beasts have similar problems. This is also one of the reasons why the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was first established. We want to help all the dragon bloodline demonic beasts break the shackles of their own bloodline, and step into a new realm. It's like this. Although you have the bloodline of the dragon clan, you may not be recognized by the bloodline of the dragon clan. Only when you are recognized by the power of your own bloodline can the bloodline continue to transform. Regarding this point, all the forces established by the dragon bloodline demonic beasts have studied, but the success rate is generally not high. Only our Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has a success rate of almost 70%. This is also one of the reasons why we can become the strongest among all the dragon bloodline demonic beasts. However, it's not easy to help the dragon bloodline demonic beasts to be recognized by the power of the bloodline. Even we have to pay a great price, so we can't provide such a service for the dragon bloodline demonic beasts for free. We're just willing to give you a chance. We're old acquaintances. As long as you're willing to join the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, I'll personally pay the cost of awakening the bloodline for you. How about that? Ao Qian did not notice Lin Yuan's strange look and continued to speak. What she said was partly true and partly false. After all, there were many forces established by the dragon bloodline demonic beasts, and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was not necessarily the strongest. However, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas did not accept demonic beasts with other bloodlines at all. Even a genius without the dragon bloodline was not qualified to join the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. As for those with the dragon bloodline, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would not care about their prospects at all, and would directly send people to invite them. As for helping the dragon bloodline demonic beasts to be recognized by the power of the bloodline, it was possible that the dragon bloodline demonic beasts had indeed summed up a set of methods, but the cost might not be very high. Moreover, since there was a failure rate, the success rate of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was definitely less than 70%. This was what Lin Yuan could be sure that Ao Qian was lying about. After all, whether it was a human or a demonic beast, the eyes were the windows to the soul. Once there was any fluctuation in the heart, the eyes would follow. When she said this, Lin Yuan could clearly see that Ao Qian's eyes were flickering. Obviously, she was guilty, like a child who had secretly done something bad. Therefore, Lin Yuan could also see that this was probably the first time she had deceived a demonic beast. Chapter 300. After all, Ao Qian had once invited the Black Serpent on behalf of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. However, at that time, the Black Serpent was just an awakened beast. Although it had the dragon bloodline, its future potential was hard to predict. Therefore, Ao Qian had only casually mentioned it. However, the Black Serpent was no longer the same as before. Just its growth speed alone was enough to crush all the young talents of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. From a beast to the peak of the wisdom state in less than a year, what kind of concept was that? Anyway, as a young genius of the dragon race, when Ao Qian heard this news, her first reaction was that someone was telling her a story. However, after confirming it repeatedly, she realized that it was true. Moreover, the main character was the Black Serpent she had seen before. In addition, other than its own strength and growth speed, the Black Serpent's subordinates were also extraordinary. Although the land beasts under the Black Serpent's command were of no value to the sea beasts, the Black Serpent now controlled the northern frontier and almost all the production of spiritual items in the Stoneclaw Forest. Even if the sea beasts did not need those, they could still bring in huge profits. The value of the Black Serpent now was completely different from the Black Serpent before. Lin Yuan narrowed his heterochromatic eyes and sized up Ao Qian for a moment. He said in a deep voice, "Senior, I need to consider this matter. After all, I am still the Beast King of the Hengduan mountain range, am I not?" Considering that if he directly rejected it, he might trigger Ao Qian's killing intent. Therefore, Lin Yuan chose to be steady. For the current him, he was surrounded by powerful enemies. Only when his strength was truly strong would he be able to accept the test. However, to give up on himself and become a lackey of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in order to obtain the bloodline power's recognition was not an option that Lin Yuan would choose. Moreover, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could not guarantee that he could successfully awaken his bloodline. Therefore, Lin Yuan needed time. If he could obtain the bloodline power's recognition, his strength would be able to smoothly enter the Mountain Lord realm. At that time, even if Ao Qian wanted to kill him, he would still be able to fight back. If he waited until Ao Qian ran out of patience and still did not awaken his bloodline power, Lin Yuan could only throw away his old face and rush into the depths of the Hengduan mountain range to seek protection from the Beast King court. He did not believe that Ao Qian would dare to pursue him. Ever since he met with Kirin, the Hengduan mountain range, the Beast King had entered a bloody period. Beast King Kirin the Hengduan mountain range killed many of the other factions hidden in the mountains. Even the Inferno Hell demon subordinates that of the lords, who had been hiding, who was who of the Purgatory Beast King. Of Beast King of ofs. Even Raymond, Keiho, and Subaru, the three great Beast Kings, were currently being investigated. One could vaguely see that the Beast King Kirin had set up a large net. People like Lin Yuan who had hidden things that other demon beasts would not see the light of day were actually safe. However, Beast King Kirin would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. The Hengduan mountain range during this period was extremely bloody and violent. If it was not necessary, Lin Yuan did not want to enter. If a foreign dragon bloodline demon beast entered the Hengduan mountain range, it would probably be torn to pieces in a matter of minutes. Ao Qian's eyes flashed with joy. She nodded with a smile and said, "It's fine. Take your time to think about it. Once you've handed over the matters at hand, follow me back to the Western Sea Dragon Palace. I will ask for instructions from the higher-ups and give you the best resources to awaken your bloodline." Lin Yuan still smiled and nodded. He still did not speak. Only after obtaining the bloodline's recognition could one become a true flood dragon. Then, what was the recognition of the flood dragon bloodline? Lin Yuan thought carefully for a moment. Suddenly, his heterochromatic eyes lit up. In his previous life, there were two types of flood dragons. One type lived in seclusion deep in the mountains and forests and did not come out. They only focused on cultivation and might often hide in the cold ponds deep in the mountains. The other type of flood dragon was different. They liked to come out and cultivate. In the ancient legends of his previous life, there were often monsters that controlled rivers and lakes. Most of them were aquatic monsters, but there was no lack of flood dragons. After all, there were too many mysteries in the sea. The strength of a flood dragon was not enough to roam freely. However, in his previous life, besides the mythical dragon king of the four seas, most of the people referred to flood dragons in the rivers, lakes, and seas. Could it be that if I want to obtain the recognition of the flood dragon bloodline, I have to choose one of these two cultivation methods? Lin Yuan gently shook the snake's head. His eyes gradually deepened. Come out or enter the world? Although it wasn't clear how the dragon bloodline demonic beasts of this world obtained the recognition of their bloodline, the difficulty was undoubtedly very high. For example, among Subaru's descendants, not to mention the three-eyed sacred heart ape, even the three-eyed sacred heart ape could be counted on one's fingers. As for whether or not the bloodline above Subaru would be the inheritance of some incomparably terrifying ancient creature, no one knew. In any case, among the apes of the Hengduan mountain range, Subaru's bloodline was the noblest and strongest. As for Lin Yuan, with the assistance of the system, it was hard to say how far his bloodline could evolve. However, if the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas really existed, it meant that the legends of his previous life were not groundless. Then, the strongest dragon that Lin Yuan knew of would be the ancestral dragon that was born after the creation of the world by Pangu. Lin Yuan did not know if he could evolve to the level of the ancestral dragon. However, Lin Yuan was sure that his upper limit was definitely not a mere water flood dragon. Then let's try to enter the world and cultivate. Lin Yuan recovered from his thoughts. Ao Qian was already nowhere to be found. Obviously, she was very satisfied with Lin Yuan's answer and wanted to give Lin Yuan enough time and trust. Therefore, when Lin Yuan was thinking, she had already quietly left. Lin Yuan, were all River Lord level demonic beasts so easily deceived? After fighting with humans and some old monsters hiding in the Hengduan mountain range for a long time, Lin Yuan's first reaction was that he was not used to seeing a fellow with a different style. However, after thinking about it, as a River Lord level demonic beast, it was hunting down a wisdom perception dove serpent. Even the task of roping in Lin Yuan had fallen on its head. Almost all of them were easy and highly paid people. Although Ao Qian did not mention it, her position in the Dragon Palace of the West Sea was definitely not low. For such an existence, ordinary demonic beasts would not dare to play tricks with it. Even humans would subconsciously avoid it. Only a cheat like Lin Yuan would deceive it. Lightly shaking his head, Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. He wriggled his snake body and walked towards the city lord mansion of Shunning City. Chapter 301. The next day, early morning. A government decree was issued from Shunning City's city lord's mansion and quickly spread to every town under the jurisdiction of the 7 cities in the northern frontier. Every human settlement built along the river had to add a new item during the planning of the buildings, Dragon King Temple. In fact, this government decree was originally issued from the king's mansion in the northern frontier. However, before this, the 7 cities in the border were almost equivalent to a land of exile. Naturally, no one would be willing to come to a place that was harassed by demon beasts every day to claim the title of king. Therefore, no king's mansion was built. There were only a few suitable buildings and could only be rebuilt. Currently, it was still in the preparation stage. Naturally, Lei Fan did not move to the king's mansion in the northern frontier. He only temporarily stayed in Shunning City's city lord's mansion, waiting for the construction of mountain-blocking city. If those nobles were to know that the northern frontier could monopolize the lucrative business of demon beasts, perhaps demon beasts would not be able to stop these nobles from yearning for profit. And Lin Yuan had been born for a year and finally had an official title, Blackwater Dragon King, Lin Yuan. Before this title, no matter what attitude one had towards Lin Yuan, they had to address Lin Yuan as Black Snake or Black Snake Beast King. But after this title, they would either address him as Blackwater Dragon King or Lin Yuan. Calling him Black Snake was more or less an insult. Most people and demon beasts scoffed at Lin Yuan's behavior. In their opinion, this Black Snake only had a slightly better aptitude, but in essence, he was still just a demon snake. He was still far from being part of the Dragon Clan. Even the Lord of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas dared to call himself the Dragon King. Since when did a mere wisdom demon snake have the right to call himself the Dragon King? But surprisingly, Lin Yuan's behavior of calling himself the Dragon King. Hengduan Mountain Range, Shenwu Dynasty, and the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas were surprisingly silent, as if they had tacitly approved of this matter. After all, in everyone's opinion, Black Snake was now one of their own, wasn't it? The title of Blackwater Dragon King was conferred by the king of the northern frontier. In theory, Lin Yuan was the official young god who ruled the northern frontier under the Shenwu dynasty. If the evil beasts on the northern frontier wanted to cause trouble, they had to show some respect to the Blackwater Dragon King. As for the Hengduan mountain range, it was even simpler. No matter what achievements Lin Yuan had outside, as long as he had not severed ties with the Hengduan mountain range, then Lin Yuan was one of the beast kings of the Hengduan mountain range. Now, this beast king not only ruled the territory of the Hengduan mountain range, but also expanded his territory to the northern frontier of the Shenwu dynasty. What could they oppose? As for the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas, it was purely for their own amusement. In their opinion, Lin Yuan would be one of them sooner or later. And judging from the speed of Lin Yuan's growth, Lin Yuan was indeed qualified to compete for the position of the Dragon King in the future. Therefore, they naturally had no objection to Lin Yuan being conferred the title of king in advance. After all, the Northern Frontier Water Tribe did not belong to the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not touch anyone's cake. On the contrary, whoever could completely rope in Lin Yuan was equivalent to adding a new force out of thin air. Of course, although the three forces had tacitly agreed, there were still many existences who did not address Lin Yuan as the Blackwater Dragon King. After all, they did not admit that Lin Yuan was qualified to be conferred the title of Dragon King. Therefore, they called Lin Yuan, Wild Python. Since Lin Yuan was born, he had been in battle almost all the time. He fought with demonic beasts and humans. From the fights between individuals for survival and strength, to later wars to expand his territory and obtain better resources, countless existences that blocked Lin Yuan's path were annihilated one after another. Even Mountain Blocking City, one of the 7 border cities, was annihilated by Lin Yuan's attack. Later, Shunning City, which gathered the forces of the 7 border cities, also fell under Lin Yuan's attack. Facing the Xiongwujuan army of the Xunwu dynasty's counterattack, Lin Yuan had no intention of backing down. He directly fought back fiercely and defeated the Xiongwujuan army. Just when Lin Yuan accepted the imperial edict and everyone thought that the Black Snake was afraid and was about to start to quiet down, Lin Yuan once again made an earth-shattering movement. It should be known that although the positions of Yang God and Yin God existed, those who could be conferred the titles were either demonic beasts raised by the major sects and dynasties, or those whose cultivation path was not smooth. They simply attached their divine thoughts to the statues and absorbed the power of faith and incense to cultivate. All in all, Lin Yuan's behavior is absolutely more than enough to be called crazy. After all, Lin Yuan was not an indigenous person of this world at all. He himself was a cheat with the system. Unless there was an absolute gap in strength between the two sides, Lin Yuan would not be in awe of anything. However, this kind of behavior was indeed arrogant in the eyes of the indigenous people of this world. Congratulations to the host for being conferred the title of Yang God by the Xunwu dynasty and unlocking a new model, incense model. At the same time, the system's notification sounded. It had been exactly 1 year since Lin Yuan had come to this world. During this year, Lin Yuan had killed countless people and provoked many strong enemies. Many people looked up to him. From a small black snake who relied on catching mice to embark on the road of cultivation, he had become the Blackwater Dragon King, who suppressed the entire northern frontier. Lin Yuan opened the incense model with his mind and began to read it carefully. Every time the system launched a new template, it would bring a lot of surprises to Lin Yuan. For example, the war template, which Lin Yuan had previously regarded as a chicken rib, had a war treasure trove that refreshed regularly, and it provided Lin Yuan with a star chart that could be used to cultivate demonic power. Lin Yuan immediately became interested in it. After all, although the system did not do anything, the sentence, "the products of the system must be the best," was still applicable. Lin Yuan faintly had a premonition that perhaps the promotion of his bloodline power would depend on this incense-burning model. Name, Lin Yuan. Title, Blackwater Dragon King. Affiliation, Xunwu Dynasty, Northern Frontier Believers. 0 Incense model. 0 Description. The host has no believers and no power of incense, so the function of the incense model has not been unlocked. The host is requested to develop believers as soon as possible and collect the power of incense to unlock the various sub-functions of the model. Lin Yuan was speechless. This time, he did not want to complain about the system for not doing anything. But then again, how was he going to develop believers and collect the power of incense? Was he going to ask people to come to the Dragon King Temple to make a wish, and then fulfill their wishes in his own way? Well, it was not impossible. The only problem was, what if people came to make a wish and said that they wanted a son? After all, in the TV series he had watched in his previous life, it seemed that the believers who went to the temple to make a wish were either asking for a son or a marriage, right? He really could not help with this kind of thing. Chapter 302. 15 days later. The first Blackwater Dragon King Temple had been completed. Lin Yuan was there personally to witness the entire process. However, he was after all a newly ascended god. Although the people of the northern frontier knew that the Black Snake could bring them a huge amount of wealth, and were willing to support the Black Snake, there was still a difference between a proper god and a ruler. The people who were present were just giving face to the Black Snake and the king of the northern frontier. But towards this newly ascended god, they did not have much expectation. However, the attitude of the people of the northern frontier was one thing, and Lei Fan's attitude was another. He was obviously very familiar with this kind of bootlicking. Lin Yuan did not even have a single believer now. But regardless of whether it was building the Dragon King Temple, or hiring the Dragon King's priests and cultivators, Lei Fan had done it with the highest standards. Even if the Buddhism Sex Freedom Courtyard were to build a branch, it would only be of this scale. Lei Fan had even specially selected a group of elite warriors from the guards of the northern frontier to guard the Dragon King Temple. In all aspects of bootlicking, Lei Fan was simply unmatched. After a series of operations, even Lin Yuan felt that it was a little ridiculous. But for some unknown reason, it was very useful. From a certain perspective, Lei Fan could be considered to have made preparations in advance. In the future, there would be no need to waste time to expand the temple. After all, things like gifting children and marriages to others were things that Lin Yuan was indeed unable to do. But to protect the northern frontier and ensure a smooth weather was not a problem for Lin Yuan, who had the blood sacrifice wishing technique. Even if Lin Yuan was unscrupulous and used special methods on those regions that did not believe in him, although he would not be popular, he would still be able to obtain the power of incense. In the stories, those villagers who had offered their children as blood sacrifices to the Dragon King, were they really willing? It was just that Lin Yuan didn't want to use such a despicable method. In the following period of time, the Blackwater Dragon King temples in the northern frontier would be built one after another, and the priests of each Dragon King temple would also meet with the representatives of the aquatic beasts in the northern frontier under the leadership of Lin Yuan. After all, the affairs in each region were basically communicated by the priests and the aquatic beasts. As long as things didn't become too big, Lin Yuan wouldn't show up. If he had to do everything by himself, why would he raise these subordinates? After he was done with most of the matters, Lin Yuan placed a strand of his divine will onto the golden snake statue that Lei Fan had hired a master sculptor to sculpt with a large sum of money. In this way, when the believers prayed to the snake statue, Lin Yuan would be able to sense it. And the more devout the believer was to Lin Yuan, the higher the possibility that Lin Yuan would be able to sense it. As for those who didn't have a sincere heart coming in to make a wish, Lin Yuan wouldn't be able to sense it at all. Even if Lin Yuan had the ability to fulfill the wishes of others, it wouldn't be like doing charity, as long as they were willing to come to his Blackwater Dragon King temple to pray. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to maintain the nobility and mystery of the gods, Lin Yuan would even want to equate the power of incense with wishes to make a deal with these believers. However, in the early stages, even if Lin Yuan was able to attract a certain number of believers, the other party might not be able to provide him with much power of incense. Therefore, at this initial stage, every time Lin Yuan fulfilled the wishes of others, it could be said that he was making a loss. After the divine will was engraved, Lin Yuan smiled gently. Although it was only a strand of divine will now, after it had absorbed enough power of incense, this strand of divine will would give birth to its own intelligence and become a special existence that belonged to Lin Yuan but had its own will. One day, it could even condense its own physical body and become the Lord Dragon King, of all places. Regarding Lin Yuan's apotheosis and temple building, every move was observed by countless forces. However, most of them felt that Lin Yuan was just wasting the resources and time in his hands to do some useless work. After all, at this moment, Lin Yuan was the leader of the younger generation of the demonic beasts in the entire Hengduan Mountains. He might not be the strongest, but his growth rate was the fastest among the demonic beasts. For such an existence, the cultivation of the Yang spirit and the Yin spirit seemed to be of no use. Only a few existences who had suffered losses at the hands of Lin Yuan would show a thoughtful look when faced with Lin Yuan's strange behavior. Since the birth of the Black Serpent, it was not that it had never suffered losses, but the existence that could make it suffer losses was absolutely rare. The Black Serpent would not waste time and energy on inexplicable things, so they were now very curious about what the Black Serpent's actions at this juncture meant. Xinwu Dynasty, the inner city of the imperial capital, imperial study. Lei Qiushan crossed his arms in front of his chest, and a dignified expression appeared on his dignified face. Although he did not know what the Black Serpent wanted to do, he was very clear that once the Black Serpent was completely apatheized in the northern frontier, it would be completely impossible for him to take back the ruling power of the northern frontier in the future. After all, the ruler of the northern frontier could be changed, but the people of the northern frontier were still the same people. As long as they believed in the Black Serpent would never die. No matter what means he used to rule the northern frontier belonged to the Shinwu dynasty, but it was an existence independent of the imperial court. Your Majesty, you don't have to worry. What the Black Serpent wants is not necessarily to rule the northern frontier. Zhang Xiu smiled, but a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, I have heard that the dragon clan of the Four Seas have bloodline shackles in their bodies. If they want to break these shackles, they must become a god and use the power of faith to complete the transformation of their bloodline. Otherwise, they must be trapped in a place and find a new path that does not rely on the power of their bloodline. In fact, there were very few monsters who chose to cultivate themselves instead of awakening the power of their bloodline. It was like asking a rich second generation not to spend a single cent of the property left by their ancestors and to go out to work to earn money. It was possible, but not necessary. This was especially so for the members of the dragon race of the Four Seas. They would not choose to walk their own path. After all, the dragon race was a race that had existed since the ancient times. Anything that was related to the dragon race could be described as precious and powerful. The path that the younger generation found might not be as powerful as inheriting the power of the bloodline. Transforming into a dragon? Lei Qiusheng's face was as gloomy as water. He narrowed his eyes and asked. Now, the other party was just a black serpent, but it had already gained the title of a berserk python. If this black serpent was allowed to complete the steps of transforming into a dragon, would it really become an existence like the Dragon King in the future? Here it comes again. Zhang Xiu rubbed his eyebrows helplessly and said in a deep voice, Your Majesty, I have said before that the Black Serpent is willing to accept the imperial edict. It means that it has no intention of being enemies with us for the time being. If the Shinwu dynasty was at its peak, I would naturally advise Your Majesty to kill the Black Serpent as soon as possible. But now, it is impossible. Chapter 303. Qingjiang dynasty and Shuangjin dynasty were still stationed at the border, and there was still Qin Pengqing who had gathered his troops to rebel. The Shinwu dynasty was not as powerful as before, and it could even be said that it was on the verge of collapse. The troubles at hand had not been solved yet, and this emperor actually wanted to fight with Black Snake? If it were not for Lei Qiusheng's almost abnormal desire for power and control, he and the aristocratic families in the Shinwu dynasty would not be in such a situation today. His twin brother Lei Qiuming would not have to start a rebellion, and that terrifying force that could casually point out the four major forces to encircle and suppress the Shinwu dynasty would not have fallen out with the Shinwu dynasty. Every sip and every peck is predetermined. Now, all the consequences that Lei Qiusheng was facing were the cause that he had sown in the past. But then again, if it were not for Lei Qiusheng's absolute control over the Shinwu dynasty, this new dynasty that was born out of the destruction of the Wanjian dynasty would not have leaped to become a feared existence among the 7 dynasties. Therefore, no one could say whether this kind of ruling method was good or bad. Humph. Lei Qiusheng snorted heavily and said in a cold voice, I would rather have my foundation fall into the hands of others than let a demonic beast grow big under my eyes. Zhang Xiu, let me ask you one more time. I want you to go to the northern frontier to kill that black snake. Will you go or not? Your Majesty, Zhang Xiu's expression was difficult. He frowned and said, now that the remnants of the Jiu clan have reached the end of their tether, they have strangely stopped all their actions. I suspect that the remnants of the Jiu clan will soon erupt with a more terrifying side. If I leave the emperor now, I'm afraid there will be a change in the imperial capital. Your Majesty, please reconsider. Without the support of the Hengduan mountain range, the remaining members of the Jiao clan were like grasshoppers after autumn. They wouldn't be able to survive for more than a few days. As long as Black Snake didn't die, they would be abandoned. However, if Black Snake died in their hands, the Hengduan mountain range wouldn't let go of these traitorous pawns. In addition, Black Snake still had the Demon Emperor Association in his hands. There was no need for him to play with the remaining members of the Jiao clan. Even if Black Snake was willing, the Demon Emperor Association wouldn't agree. At this moment, the surviving members of the Jiao family were doing their last craziness before they were destroyed. As long as they had a chance, there was nothing they couldn't do. Lei Qiusheng's face darkened when he heard Zhang Xiu's concern. Lei Qiusheng slowly put down his crossed arms and said with a fake smile, "Zhang Xiu, you mean to say that you are looking down on me, right?" The Xinwu dynasty was all alone. Everything is under my control. Even if you weren't in the imperial capital, what can a bunch of surviving members of the previous dynasty do? Lei Qiusheng was extremely dissatisfied with Zhang Xiu's belittling. Zhang Xiu could only smile bitterly for a moment and didn't dare to say anything else. Lei Qiusheng might be a mighty ruler, but Lei Qiusheng, who was born in the military, didn't like to play politics. Lei Qiusheng treated those dirty tricks as something that only trash would play. If he really wanted Lei Qiusheng to fight with the remaining members of the Jiao clan, the only possibility was that the embroidered uniform guards in the imperial capital would suffer heavy losses. After all, His Majesty was used to crushing everything. It wasn't impossible for him to follow the clues and drag out his opponents one by one. However, he would have to suffer a few losses first. Unfortunately, the Xinwu dynasty's strength in all aspects was very tight. Even a small pawn couldn't be casually mobilized, let alone killed. For a moment, the ruler and subject fell into a strange silence. Neither of them spoke first. In the end, Lei Qiusheng sighed deeply and said in a low voice, "Fine. Although I don't know why you insist on protecting this black snake, you and I have been ruler and subject for many years. Our friendship surpasses that of brothers. I'll listen to you this time, but I don't want the next time." Lin Yuan didn't know that the turmoil from the Xinwu dynasty had been suppressed by Zhang Xiu's insistence before it had even begun. However, to him, the real trouble had already come knocking on his door. "Black Snake, this is the first time we've officially met, right?" The shrunken lord looked like a true pure-blooded dragon. He was covered in crimson scales and had 4 sharp claws. Just looking at him was enough to give Lin Yuan a huge shock. However, Lin Yuan could see that the other party's appearance was just a skin bag. There wasn't even a trace of dragon blood in his body. "How should I address you?" Lin Yuan raised his eyelids and asked in a relaxed tone. He was no longer the little black snake that the other party could casually crush with a wave of his hand. Now, whether it was his strength or his status, they had both greatly improved. Not to mention, he also had the secret of this lord in his hands. Even if there was a difference of 2 realms, Lin Yuan could still communicate with the other party on equal terms with a calm face. Now, Zhu Xian could directly tear him apart if he didn't agree with him. However, he could also guarantee that as long as he died in Zhu Xian's hands, the fact that Zhu Xian was a purgatory demon beast would soon be known by everyone. At that time, whether it was the Hengduan mountain range or the 7 dynasties, there would be no place for Zhu Xian. This was Lin Yuan's confidence now. Zhu Xian. The Lord wasn't angry. He just smiled gently and said in a low voice, "I'm here today to ask how long your subordinates plan to stay here with me. Also, what you promised me before, when will you do it?" When Zhu Xian first captured Mendu, he thought that Mendu was Black Snake's right-hand man. However, after Mendu left, Black Snake promoted Na Qin and didn't seem to be affected at all. After being raised by Black Snake for so long, Zhu Xian suddenly realized that to Black Snake, no matter how the team changed, Black Snake was the absolute core of the team. No matter how the others changed, it wouldn't affect Black Snake. "Mendu? Oh, I would have forgotten if you didn't mention it. Thank you for taking care of my subordinates during this period." Lin Yuan gave Zhu Xian an awkward but polite smile. Although he already knew that Mendu had been captured by Zhu Xian, Lin Yuan had been looking for the base of Zhu Xian's forces for the past 2.5 months. Although there were many purgatory demon beasts under Zhu Xian's command, their territories were not connected. They were scattered in the Hengduan mountain range and were not close to the Stonetalan forest. Lin Yuan wanted to save Mendu, but he was powerless. He was about to give up, but he didn't expect Zhu Xian to come knocking on his door. Chapter 304. Zhu Xian never thought that Black Snake would be this shameless. Although Lin Yuan admitted that the sect was under Zhu Xian's control, he didn't mention a word about collecting the Heart of Purgatory. Was he planning to go back on his word? Zhu Xian's eyes suddenly became gloomy. I don't think that someone of your status would keep pressuring a little intelligence perception demonic beast, right? Or do you have some other ideas? Lin Yuan's eyes were obviously a bit of ridicule. Zhu Xian's face stiffened, and he said angrily, "Black Snake, don't play this game with me. Although the Heart of Purgatory isn't something that I must have, it's just to improve my cultivation progress. Compared to this, I don't like people lying to me. You know what will happen to you if I give up on obtaining the Heart of Purgatory, right?" Lin Yuan was silent. He didn't know what the Heart of Purgatory was, but if it could make an existence like Zhu Xian come out to set it up, it must be something extraordinary. So he really didn't think that Zhu Xian would give up on the Heart of Purgatory. But then again, although he wasn't afraid of Zhu Xian directly killing him, Zhu Xian just released a rumor and the nearby demon beast clans, including the Green Marsh clan, didn't dare to provoke him. It seemed that Zhu Xian was definitely an overlord in the Hengduan mountain range. Even if he wasn't as strong as the three beast kings, he definitely wasn't far off. Lin Yuan could now smoothly manage the northern frontier because of Subaru's support. A great beast king level existence personally came to suppress him. That scene was too beautiful. Lin Yuan really didn't dare to think about it. Scared? Hee, I thought you weren't afraid of anything. Zhu Xian sneered and said with a gloomy face, "Black Snake, you know my secret, but I also know some of your little secrets. Do you think I've been paying attention to you for a day or two? Where did those strange demon beasts around you come from? Can you explain it clearly? Also, the dragon blood in your body is inexplicably becoming purer and purer, you." As Zhu Xian spoke, she suddenly noticed that Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly lit up, as if he had discovered something very interesting. At that time, Zhu Xian's heart suddenly quivered. She didn't continue speaking, but her eyes swept back and forth, as if she wanted to find something from the Black Snake. Especially at that moment, he even felt an aura of death above his head. It was as if some indescribably terrifying existence had passed through the endless void and looked at him. "You." Behind you, Zhu Xian swallowed her saliva and said in a trembling voice. Previously, it was said that there was a demon the arch behind the Black Serpent, but it still didn't believe it. After all, it had observed the Black Serpent for so long, and no one knew better than it whether there were other forces behind the Black Serpent. But from the looks of it now, not only was there an ancient demonic emperor behind the Black Snake, but it was also a demonic emperor at his peak. Just by glancing at it from across the endless void, it felt the terror of death. What kind of terrifying existence was this? With such strength, not to mention re-establishing the ancient demonic court, even if it swept across the entire Tianwu continent, no one would dare to stand up and say no. But such a terrifying existence refused to show itself. Instead, it put the Black Serpent out in the open for the world to see, enjoying all the riches that the Black Serpent should not have enjoyed. Perhaps, this was a big shot. But whether or not there was a demonic emperor behind the Black Serpent, he was no longer interested, because he had already lost interest in the Black Serpent. Compared to the Black Serpent, there was a real substitute in the northern frontier. Although it was just a glimpse, Zhu Xian could still feel the noble dragon blood in Ao Qian's body. Although it was not as pure as the Black Serpent's, the blood in her body was more noble. Zhu Xian leaned forward, a cold look in his eyes, and said coldly, "Black Serpent, there is no need for us to be enemies. As long as you are willing to cooperate with me, not only will I not continue to be your enemy, I can even form an alliance with you." Recently, the Beast Lord Kirin has found many suitable successors. With your talent, you should be one of them, right? The other successors all have the support of the desolate demonic realm, but you have nothing. Could it be? At this point, Zhu Xian paused, and said tentatively, "Can you bring out the demonic emperor behind you? I have to admit that among all the successors, your background is the most powerful. But if the demonic emperor behind you wanted to show himself, he would not have put you in this position." Although he did not know what the death threat was, he could still feel the threat from the other party. He could not reveal the other party's existence. Even if he knew, he had to continue playing dumb. Otherwise, he would be directly wiped out by the other party's terrifying power. This was the message that the other party had just conveyed. Originally, Zhu Xian did not want to mention this again, but now that only he and the Black Serpent were here, he did not need to worry too much about mentioning the demonic emperor. He only needed to tell the Black Serpent these words and then bury them in his heart. Lin Yuan's mouth twitched slightly. Although he did not know why, he always felt that everyone who saw him felt that there was a demonic emperor from the ancient demonic court behind him. If he did not know that it was just something he made up to fool Su Nan, he might have believed it himself. However, Zhu Xian's words had indeed struck Lin Yuan's heart. The other successors that the Beast Lord Qilin had set his eyes on, regardless of their own strength or methods, would more or less have a desolate demon realm expert backing them. Even if they didn't have one, the entire clan would still have a few mountain lords. After all, some of the successors might not have been chosen for their own sake. It was only because they had powerful backing that they became targets for the Beast Lord Qilin's consideration. Of course, the chances of someone like that becoming the new Beast King were not high. The successor of the demonic beast court did not have a rule that said that they had to choose a suitable Beast King. If the new Beast King was willing, he could pass the position of Beast King to a member of his clan at any time. Of course, if the new Beast King was not strong enough, he would still be pulled down by other demonic beast clans in the forest. The theory of the law of the jungle was just that realistic. If the demonic beasts wanted to become Beast King, they just had to act. However, the problem now was that Lin Yuan did not have a desolate demon realm existence behind him. His strength was only at the peak of the wisdom realm. If Beast King Kirin was about to change positions, Lin Yuan might even be assassinated by some old bastards. Chapter 305. Cooperating with Mo Xian was like asking a tiger for its skin. These purgatory beasts that disguised themselves as ordinary demonic beasts were not very smart. They might become extremely irritable if provoked slightly. However, Mo Xian, who could control a group of purgatory beasts and even suppress their ferocious nature, was definitely an exception. To be able to climb to a position comparable to a great beast king as a purgatory beast, Mo Xian's strength and means were not inferior to those old foxes Lin Yuan had seen before. In fact, she was even better at enduring. If Lin Yuan could reach a cooperative relationship with Mo Xian, it seemed that there was indeed a desolate demon realm existence behind him. Moreover, it was a desolate demon that was comparable to a great beast king. However, seriously speaking, the relationship between Lin Yuan and Mo Xian could not be described as harmonious at all. There were two reasons for maintaining peace between the two sides. First, Lin Yuan's current strength was not enough, so he could not fall out with this purgatory beast who lusted after his body. Second, it was because of the existence of the Beast King Kirin. Although Lin Yuan did not know what level the Beast King Kirin had reached in the desolate demon realm, the Beast King Kirin's strength was definitely enough to crush Mo Xian, who was also in the desolate demon realm. This was also the reason why Mo Xian did not dare to fall out with Lin Yuan. If the Beast King Kirin was replaced, Mo Xian would soon lose his fear of Lin Yuan. He might even kill Lin Yuan and take control of the Hengduan Mountains himself. Therefore, Mo Xian's proposal was complete nonsense in Lin Yuan's eyes. After all, although these guys all think that there is a demon emperor behind them, in fact, Lin Yuan himself still has the most right to say whether there is a demon emperor behind them or not. He is just a cheater with a system. He is really not a chess piece that the big boss arranged in the Hengduan Mountains. The Beast King Kirin was real. He could be seen and touched. Therefore, as long as the Beast King Kirin was alive, Moxion's fear of Kirin would remain. However, the shifter emperor behind Kirin was different. After all, it was only a legendary existence. It was fine to not see him for a day or two, but after a long time, some people would think that Lin Yuan was just making up a shifter emperor to scare them. What do you want? Lin Yuan slightly narrowed his eyes and took the initiative to ask. Moxion licked his lips and sneered, "Didn't a dragon race that came to find you some time ago? I want you to cooperate with me and trick that dragon race to collect the heart of purgatory. Once I devour it, the biggest problem between us will no longer exist. It's good for both of us. What do you think?" Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and almost blurted out the word F***ck off. Ao Qian's status in the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was definitely not low. It would be fine if she left Lin Yuan's territory safely. However, if something happened to Ao Qian in his territory, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would be the first to settle the score with him. By then, no matter how many lives he had, he wouldn't be enough for these dragons to kill. Seeing that Lin Yuan didn't speak, Moxion's eyes hardened. However, he knew that this wasn't the time to push too hard. He could only narrow his eyes and say, "Black Snake, I'll give you enough time to consider. As long as this dragon race doesn't leave your territory, I can wait patiently for your reply. However, if this dragon race leaves, we will be in a situation where we won't rest until one of us dies." Lin Yuan just snorted at Moxion's threat. "If you're so awesome, why didn't I see you go to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and capture a dragon race to go with your wine?" Watching Moxion leave, the waves in Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes slowly jumped. "It's here." Someone was making a wish in the Blackwater Dragon King Temple. After all, there was still a period where there were no believers. Therefore, Lin Yuan didn't have the qualifications to sit high in the sky like the gods in his previous life and completely ignore the suffering of the world. Therefore, in the face of a mortal's prayer, Lin Yuan still had to respond. Blackwater Dragon King Temple, Dragon King Hall. A beautiful woman in luxurious clothes knelt on a futon with her hands clasped together. Next to her was a priest who was muttering something. It was said that he was communicating with the gods. However, Lin Yuan didn't know who this priest was communicating with. In any case, he couldn't understand this kind of bird language. The golden snake statue twisted, and soon, a transparent snake head drilled out of the statue. A pair of vertical pupils fixed on the rich woman who had her hands clasped together. In a dignified voice, it said, "Mortal, speak your wish." Seeing that the black snake had responded so quickly, a touch of joy flashed across the beautiful woman's face. Then, she slowly began to speak her wish. The beautiful woman's surname was Zhen. Her husband was a rich merchant from the Shenwu dynasty. Some time ago, when he came to Shunning City to trade goods, he disappeared without a trace. She almost asked all her friends and looked for a lot of connections, but she didn't get any news. It was as if her husband had mysteriously disappeared from the world. In order to find out her husband's whereabouts, the beautiful woman even went to the Zizai courtyard. She donated a lot of money, but she didn't get any response from the gods. For this kind of situation, the Zen master of the Zizai courtyard didn't just push the blame away once or twice. He very skillfully told her that the gods didn't respond to her because she was not sincere. In desperation, the beautiful woman heard that the Shenwu dynasty had just conferred a god in the northern frontier. Although it was a god who ruled the water realm, it was still a god, wasn't it? Anyway, in the eyes of a mortal like her, a god should be omniscient and omnipotent. So, she didn't care about her desperate behavior at all. She simply went to the Blackwater Dragon King temple that had just been built. Even she didn't believe it, but the black snake really quickly gave her a response. Looking for someone, a touch of helplessness flashed across Lin Yuan's vertical pupils. Ding, congratulations to the host. Special mission activated, the First Believer's Prayer. Name, the First Believer's Prayer. Description, as the new Dragon King of the northern frontier, nothing in this land can escape your eyes. Please help the woman surnamed Jin find her husband. Reward: obtain a fanatic believer, unlock a sub-function of the incense model, conversion, punishment, non-sub-function, conversion affiliation, incense model function. The host can convert the power of incense into various kinds of energy. At the same time the system prompt sounded, Lin Yuan took a deep breath and looked at the beautiful woman meaningfully. Fortunately, the other party's wish was only to find her husband. If it was really a guy who came to ask for a child with a lot of money, Lin Yuan reckoned that he would directly give up this mission. Although the reward was quite generous, if he couldn't do something, he should give up before the punishment. Was he going to brace himself and trick the other party? Chapter 306. With my blood, I grant your wish. Lin Yuan's voice slowly sounded, his pair of vertical pupils fixed on the beautiful woman's face. His main body far away in Shunning City also simultaneously activated the blood sacrifice wishing technique. The beautiful woman was just an ordinary person, so her wish shouldn't be difficult to fulfill. After all, it was very difficult for a cultivator to marry an ordinary person and still be so loving. Therefore, Lin Yuan speculated that the beautiful woman's husband should also be an ordinary person, so finding this person didn't require much blood at all. But just to be safe, Lin Yuan still extracted 1/7 of his blood at once as a sacrifice for the blood sacrifice wishing technique. However, after the 1/7 of his blood was extracted, Lin Yuan's expression instantly stiffened, because he didn't receive any prompt from the blood sacrifice wishing technique. The causality technique always had a certain failure rate, but the blood sacrifice wishing technique was a special technique that could increase the success rate through sacrifices. For example, if Lin Yuan wanted to summon a thunderstorm now, he only needed a few drops of blood to do it. After all, he had already become a peak wisdom realm demon beast. As his strength gradually increased, doing something similar was just a thought away, and he didn't even need to pay a sacrifice. But now the technique failed because the system determined that 1/7 of Lin Yuan's blood was simply not enough to find the beautiful woman's husband. This was a very thought-provoking matter. Was the beautiful woman's husband extraordinary, or was the existence that captured the beautiful woman's husband extraordinary, or was it both? I really don't believe it. Lin Yuan's pupils suddenly contracted, and he clenched his teeth and began to make a ruthless decision. After all, this was the first time the Blackwater Dragon King showed his skills after becoming the main god of the northern frontier. If he failed or was humiliated, Lin Yuan wouldn't be able to face himself. Moreover, the mission reward was quite generous, so Lin Yuan didn't want to give up. 1/3 of the blood in Lin Yuan's body mysteriously evaporated. Lin Yuan, who was coiled up in the room, suddenly felt his aura wither. He gasped for air as if he would die at any moment. Except for some special creatures, most creatures would die once they lost too much blood. They didn't have to wait for all the blood in their bodies to be drained. Therefore, the previous 1/7 and the current 1/3 of his blood was a dangerous number for Lin Yuan. After all, he was just a cheater with a system. His body wasn't digitized like a game character to the point that he could run and jump with only 1% of his HP left. At this moment, in the Blackwater Dragon King Temple, Lin Yuan's divine sense shook violently and almost dissipated. The beautiful woman and the priestess beside her were shocked. Who would have thought that the newly appointed god of the northern region would almost vanish into thin air just by trying to figure out the whereabouts of a human? That, Lord Dragon King, the beautiful woman opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. Although she didn't believe that the Blackwater Dragon King could find her husband, he was still helping her. Therefore, she didn't say a word even if she wanted to. After all, the Dragon King in front of her was much better than other people. Your husband is in Shunning City, in the Qiao family in the east of the city. Before the beautiful woman could finish speaking, Lin Yuan had already opened his mouth slowly. Previously, he was still wondering why he couldn't deduce the whereabouts of an ordinary person with 1/7 of his blood. However, now that the Qiao family in Shunning City was involved, Lin Yuan began to feel relieved. The Qiao family in the northern frontier was one of the oldest families in the Shenwu dynasty. They had been passed down since the Wanjian dynasty. Although they didn't have a Kongming realm existence, they had a total of 9 heaven realm existences. If it wasn't for the Qiao family's lack of interest in conflicts between major forces, Lin Yuan might not have been able to conquer Shunning City with the Qiao family's presence. The Qiao family's strength on the surface was enough to sweep across the northern frontier in the past. Lin Yuan's gaze lingered on the beautiful woman's face for a moment. He asked in confusion, "Why? Aren't you surprised to hear that your husband is in the Qiao family? Could it be that this woman didn't know what kind of existence the Qiao family was?" Thinking about it carefully, it was quite possible. Although the Qiao family was powerful, they kept a very low profile. If it wasn't for the fact that Lin Yuan had a monopoly on the spiritual item business and the Qiao family took the initiative to cooperate with him, Lin Yuan, the actual ruler of the northern frontier, wouldn't have known that such a powerful family was hidden under his command. Plop. As soon as Lin Yuan finished speaking, the beautiful woman directly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Lin Yuan. She repeatedly said, "May I be so bold as to ask Lord Dragon King to save my husband?" Lin Yuan, frankly speaking, when he reported the location of the beautiful woman's husband, the quest submission column was still grayed out. He had a vague premonition that something bad was about to happen, and now, it really came true. Lin Yuan was silent for a moment. He slightly narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Since you're begging me to save your husband, then you should know why the Qiao family took your husband, right? Tell me clearly. Otherwise, I won't do anything. If I find out that you dared to lie to me, you and your husband won't be able to leave the northern frontier alive." Lin Yuan was now considered a business partner of the Qiao family. If the beautiful woman's husband didn't have a death feud with the Qiao family would more or less give him some face if he went to ask for his husband. However, if the beautiful woman's husband had an irreconcilable feud with the Qiao family, his reputation as the ruler of the northern frontier might not be useful. If they really fought, although he wasn't afraid of the Qiao family, the one who would suffer in the end would still be the entire northern frontier. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, the beautiful woman also clearly heaved a sigh of relief. Although this newly appointed god of the northern frontier wasn't strong, this Blackwater Dragon King still had a breath of righteousness in his heart. If she begged the other forces of the northern frontier for the same thing, she would most likely be rejected. Some of the lackeys who flattered the Qiao family would even take the initiative to report this matter to the Qiao family. Even forces with Void Realm experts wouldn't easily provoke the Qiao family. This was the face of the Qiao family in the northern frontier. However, this Blackwater Dragon King expressed that he was willing to stand up for her. Lin Yuan didn't know what the beautiful woman was thinking at this moment. He was very clear that whether or not he could transform into a dragon depended on this incense template. Therefore, after the first mission was issued, Lin Yuan didn't want to fail no matter what. As for the Qiao family, in the eyes of other forces, they might be an existence not to be trifled with, but in Lin Yuan's eyes, they were just one of the many lice. Anyway, lice didn't itch when there were too many of them. Chapter 307. My husband was once a member of the Qiao clan. His cultivation aptitude could be said to be monstrous. The previous head of the Qiao clan said that he had the potential to break through to the Heaven Dipper realm before the age of 30. However, because he wasn't a direct descendant of the Qiao clan, he was secretly poisoned by the son of the current head of the Qiao clan, which destroyed my husband's cultivation path. After that, my husband went to a foreign land and built a business that is comparable to the richest in the region with the identity of an ordinary person. I didn't expect that the Qiao clan still wouldn't let my husband go. They took the opportunity when my husband came to the northern frontier to purchase spiritual items to kidnap my husband. Although I don't know why the Qiao clan did this. I feel that it might be related to a secret that my husband knew. If Lord Dragon King can help me rescue my husband and guarantee that we can safely leave the northern frontier, I am willing to hand over the secret. The beautiful woman bowed slightly with a hint of sorrow in her eyes. Lin Yuan's gaze swept back and forth across the beautiful woman's face. His eyes also revealed a hint of contemplation. After all, He wasn't a divine beast like the Xie that was born to see through people's hearts and see through lies. Therefore, he could only guess what the beautiful woman said. For an aristocratic clan like the Qiao clan that had been passed down since ancient times, their foundation was already here. If they continued to forge ahead, it would very likely cause some people or forces to be dissatisfied and bring about an unexpected disaster. Therefore, to them, stability had to be placed in front of all options. A prodigy from a side branch might be a good thing for a small or medium-sized clan, but for a top-notch clan like the Qiao clan, it was very likely to cause unrest in the clan. Therefore, it wasn't impossible for the Qiao clan to kill this prodigy in advance. After killing this prodigy's cultivation path, he could still leave the northern frontier safely and go to other places to develop. It should be the Qiao clan's compensation after the incident. Then, what kind of secret did he know that the Qiao clan would suddenly make things difficult for him and directly detain him in the northern frontier? Did this secret exist or not? Or rather, what exactly was this secret? Seeing that Lin Yuan didn't speak, the beautiful woman deliberated for a moment before slowly saying, "Lord Dragon King, I am not an unreasonable person. As long as you are willing to go to the Qiao clan and ask for him, I will tell this secret to Lord Dragon King whether you succeed or not." "Alright, then this king will give it a try." Lin Yuan nodded and then sent his divine thought into the statue again. This strand of his divine thought had not been baptized by the power of incense, so it was unbelievably weak. Previously, when his main body used the blood sacrifice wishing technique, his vitality was greatly damaged, and even this strand of divine thought almost collapsed. He might have to recuperate in the statue for a long time before he could come out. Hopefully, the beautiful woman's secret was valuable enough. Otherwise, even if he obtained the quest reward, Lin Yuan's heart would still be filled with resentment. After entering the statue, no one disturbed Lin Yuan, and his mind gradually became active. If the secret of the beautiful woman's husband was related to the northern frontier, then Lin Yuan was confident that he could take him down. As for the beautiful woman's thoughts, they didn't escape Lin Yuan's eyes. She would tell him this secret regardless of whether he got the person or not. The Qiao clan had stood tall in the northern frontier for so many years. They had experienced 3 generations of rulers, Myriad Sword, Divine Marshal, and Lin Yuan. It was impossible for them not to have any means to inquire. Therefore, whether Lin Yuan could get the person or not, the Qiao clan would know the secret. If it involved a wide range of people, the Qiao clan wouldn't give up even if they had a falling out. After all, seeking stability and keeping a low profile wasn't the same as building a car behind closed doors. If the beautiful woman told this secret to Lin Yuan, then Lin Yuan and the Qiao clan would definitely clash. Even if he, as the new ruler of the northern frontier, wasn't a match for the Qiao clan, he would still be able to bring some damage to the Qiao clan. It could be considered as helping the Qiao clan vent their resentment. As for what would happen to Lin Yuan after this, naturally, she didn't consider it. Even if Lin Yuan defeated the Qiao clan, his future actions in the northern frontier would be difficult. After all, the Qiao clan was the representative of the northern frontier's aristocratic families. If Lin Yuan made a move against the Qiao clan, the remaining small and medium-sized aristocratic families would naturally feel insecure. When the time came, it wasn't impossible for the aristocratic families in the northern frontier to unite and resist Lin Yuan. Even if in Lin Yuan's plan, the aristocratic families were originally a force to be defeated, but now that the development of the northern frontier had just begun, they were completely unprepared. They would definitely suffer some losses. The stinger of a wasp's tail, the mouth of a green bamboo snake, both were not poisonous, but a woman's heart was the most poisonous. The lessons that countless people in his previous life summed up with blood and tears, sometimes would come true. 15 minutes later. Lin Yuan, who had recovered some of his strength, finally didn't look weak from his face. He wriggled his snake body and walked towards the Qiao clan's residence. The Qiao clan's residence was located in the east of Shunning City. The scale of the residence wasn't large, covering an area of 60,000 miles. If it was in Lin Yuan's previous life, it could be considered a first-class mansion. But in this world where the residences of officials and princes could easily cover an area of 1 to 200,000 miles, the Qiao clan's residence was not only not large, it could even be said to be a little shabby. It was completely unworthy of the terrifying background of the Qiao clan. Under Lin Yuan's rule of the northern frontier, the style was completely different from before. Regardless of whether it was humans or demonic beasts, they could freely enter and leave the various human settlements and trade. As for the demonic beasts hunting and gathering of demonic beasts, they all stopped at the demonic beast forest in the periphery of the Hengduan mountain range. Without Lin Yuan's permission, there was simply no human who dared to take half a step into the Hengduan mountain range. Otherwise, even if they were eaten alive by the demonic beasts, no one would stand up for them. Similarly, although the demonic beasts could freely enter and leave the human settlements, no one could do whatever they wanted. Once the demonic beasts intentionally harmed humans in the human settlements, there was simply no need for the northern frontier's human forces to make a move. Lin Yuan would personally capture the demonic beasts, and after a thorough investigation, he would give both parties a satisfactory explanation. As an existence that had been nurtured on Earth, Lin Yuan was very clear that regardless of whether it was humans or demonic beasts on the Tianwu continent, their ideals were actually wrong. Between two intelligent races, whether it was the strength of the difference in status, but both sides should maintain a relationship of coexistence and prosperity, and should not be dominated by one side. Once the oppression was prolonged, even a lamb would bare its teeth. As for Lin Yuan's concept of coexistence and prosperity, although many people did not understand, when used in the northern frontier, the effect was exceptionally outstanding, and could even be said to be perfect. In other places, humans and demonic beasts would not be able to live in harmony, but in the northern frontier, all of them had to obediently abide by the rules. After all, in each settlement, the law enforcers were formed by both humans and demonic beasts. Furthermore, it was a rotation system. It was simply impossible to cover up the sky, cover up, and be biased. Chapter 308. The Qiao family was the Qiao family, after all. They were a family that had been around for nearly 1,000 years. Their power and resources were far beyond what ordinary people could imagine. As soon as Lin Yuan stepped into the east side of the city, he suddenly felt darkness in front of him. A black wave of people appeared before him. Even the weakest among them was at level 7 of the mortal evolution state. There were a few empty spaces in the depths of the crowd. Although Lin Yuan didn't look closely, he could sense that there were airborne realm beings coming from those empty spaces. And this was just a corner of the east side of the city. Ha, a show of strength? A cold light flashed in Lin Yuan's multicolored eyes. After all, his current appearance was unique in the entire northern frontier. He had black dragon scales with gold inlaid on top of one blue eye and the other ice-colored eye. There was no other beast that looked like this. Therefore, as soon as Lin Yuan appeared in Shunning City, the Qiao family probably got the news and quickly organized people, planning to show Lin Yuan who was stronger. It made sense. Someone at Lin Yuan's level wouldn't be so free as to wander around. He must have a purpose for appearing in Shunning City. In addition, he was heading straight for the Qiao family's territory in the east side of the city. The people in charge of the Qiao family were no fools. Of course, they would react. But Lin Yuan slowly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, a golden light suddenly flashed in his heterochromatic vertical pupils. An invisible pressure spread from Lin Yuan. The countless human cultivators standing in front of him didn't even have time to be fierce to Lin Yuan before Lin Yuan glared at them. Boom! It was as if a bomb exploded in their minds. These human cultivators instantly felt their minds go blank. Then, when they finally woke up and looked at Lin Yuan, some fear was born in their hearts for some reason. It was as if the one standing there wasn't a black snake that ruled the northern frontier, but a real dragon descendant hiding in the deep sea. Make way. When Lin Yuan saw that the crowd was in a mess, he struck while the iron was hot. The song of the tyrant of the world was launched in an instant. Suddenly, it was like a heavy hammer that smashed heavily into the crowd. Even some humans with slightly weaker willpower were so scared that they lost control of their bowels just by looking at Lin Yuan twice. Some of them even ran away recklessly. This was a talent skill that the system rewarded Lin Yuan when the bloodline transformation progress bar reached 90%. Dragon's Aura. As a dragon, you are born with an incomparable majesty. When you activate Dragon's Aura, your target has a 5% chance of falling into a state of extreme panic, 15% chance of falling into a state of panic, and 60% chance of falling into a state of panic. Note 1. Only one skill effect can be triggered. For example, an existence that enters a state of panic cannot enter a state of extreme panic. Note 2. This skill is ineffective against targets whose realm is higher than yours. It will not cause the target to fall into panic, but it will have a certain degree of deterrence. Note 3. This skill has no cooldown time, but it can only be used once in 3 days on the same target. Among the human cultivators present, there was no one with a higher cultivation base than Lin Yuan. Therefore, the Dragon Might skill was launched very smoothly by Lin Yuan. Even if there were a few humans who guessed the probability and did not fall into a state of panic, the chaos around them at the moment naturally affected their rhythm. Even a large number of them did not know why they were running away, but their bodies had already fled with the crowd first. The combination of the Tyrant of the World's song and Dragon Might was terrifying. Lin Yuan even felt that if he used these two skills at the same time, he could directly turn a group of well-trained human troops into a defeated army. Of course, this was just Lin Yuan's imagination. After all, a well-trained army almost always had a willpower as strong as steel. Although they would still be affected by Lin Yuan's Dragon Might, it was unlikely that they would run away directly. However, when this skill was used on these ordinary cultivators who could only be regarded as wandering soldiers at best, it was no different from throwing a huge rock into the deep sea, instantly stirring up stormy waves. Lin Yuan continued forward. Wherever he passed, the human cultivators all made way, even forgetting their initial purpose of blocking this place. Even the few airborne realm beings hiding in the crowd retreated one after another. They were even more afraid of Lin Yuan than those mortal evolution realm cultivators. After all, with their level, it was easier for them to feel the absolute difference in power between the two sides. In front of Lin Yuan, they were not much different from those mortal evolution realm beings. In any case, Lin Yuan could easily crush them with a casual blow. There was no resistance at all. After passing through the outermost sea of people, Lin Yuan continued to move in the direction of the Qiao family's residence. Soon, 3 tall figures blocked in front of Lin Yuan again. The leader was a middle-aged man with a mustache. He had very high cheekbones, clear eyes, and an elegant and easygoing temperament. However, those who knew this middle-aged man's existence only had a deep fear of him. After all, this man almost wiped out the other aristocratic families in Shunning City, causing the Qiao family to be the dominant family today. The few aristocratic families who could join forces to fight with the Qiao family either fled far away or were beaten to the bottom, becoming one of the small, insignificant families in the eyes of others. Qiao Yilin, the current head of the Qiao family. I didn't know that Lord Dragon King had arrived. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you. Qiao Yilin saluted Lin Yuan from afar, but his calm voice sounded as if it was right next to Lin Yuan's ear. He was ranked 3rd among the direct descendants of the Qiao family and was also one of the Heaven Dipper realm beings in the Qiao family. He could be considered a powerful figure of the middle generation. Lin Yuan acted as if he didn't see the sea of people just now. He nodded naturally and said, "It's fine." As his voice fell, Qiao Yilin's face stiffened. He didn't know how to continue the conversation. The Qiao family's actions couldn't be considered a lack of welcome. It could even be said that the Qiao family wanted to show Lin Yuan their power with great fanfare. According to Black Snake's rumored warmonger personality, he would either choose to admit defeat and obediently give the Qiao family face or fly into a rage and directly attack the Qiao family. Both were within Qiao Yilin's expectations. However, Black Snake's actions directly stunned Qiao Yilin. "It's fine. It's fine, my foot." Qiao Yilin, who choked on his words, had a look of discomfort on his face. Although he didn't know how to continue Lin Yuan's words, he still played along and said with a fake smile, "Lord Dragon King, an honored guest has arrived. I still don't know what's so important that Lord Dragon King would personally come to my humble abode." Chapter 309. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. Seeing that the other party had changed the topic so quickly, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He slowly said, "It's not a big deal, but I have a friend who was detained by your Qiao clan. He hasn't been home for nearly half a month. His wife came to me, crying and begging me to ask about the Qiao clan." The moment he finished speaking, the smile on Xiao Yilan's face froze. Although he had already guessed that Black Snake's visit wouldn't be anything good, he really didn't expect that Black Snake would come for that guy. Did that mean that Black Snake was also here for that secret realm? After all, as the #1 clan in the northern frontier, the Qiao clan naturally cared about their reputation. They couldn't casually detain someone for such a small matter. In the past, when no one was in charge, the Qiao clan didn't dare to be so arrogant. Now that Lin Yuan had taken charge of the northern frontier, the first thing he did was set new rules, and rules that were beneficial to everyone. Even if the Qiao clan had the guts, they wouldn't dare to risk angering the public. In addition, it had been half a month. Even if Xiao Yilan hadn't thought of that abandoned son of the Qiao clan, he should have understood by now. Of course, an existence of Lin Yuan's level wouldn't just wander around. Although one wouldn't visit a temple for no reason, he definitely wouldn't make a trip to Shunning City just to say hello to the Qiao clan. It was just that Xiao Yilan hadn't thought of this at all. Although that abandoned son of the Qiao clan had done quite a lot of business with the Qiao clan support, in front of a true expert, it was still not worth mentioning. No matter how much wealth he had, without strength, he couldn't protect his mountain of gold and silver. Therefore, they didn't think that the abandoned son of the Qiao clan would actually make contact with a troublesome existence like Lin Yuan. At first, the Qiao clan wanted to take Lin Yuan down a notch because they had more or less heard some rumors. Lin Yuan intended to open academies all over the northern frontier. Not only would he teach children how to read and write, but he would also open up cultivation methods to these students to a certain extent. Once they joined the academy and became an instructor, there was a chance that they would be able to obtain a higher-level cultivation method from Black Snake. After all, on the surface, the Black Snake was just a smokescreen for the primordial demon emperor. With a powerful being behind him, any cultivation technique that came out of the Black Snake's hands would be labeled as powerful and mysterious. Xiao Yilan didn't even need to wait for that day to come. He only needed to think about it to know that once the Northern Region Lord's mansion issued this decree, it would be a terrifying attraction to those idle cultivators and how much support it would receive from the common people. From a long-term perspective, once Lin Yuan issued this decree, the quality of talents in the entire northern frontier would rapidly increase by a large margin. It would only stop after reaching an extremely high level. It was even possible for the northern frontier to surpass the 7 empires. Although this was a good thing for the northern frontier, it was a terrible thing for the noble families, clans, and sects. What right did they have to stand aloof from the world and enjoy the adoration and worship of countless ordinary people? This was because they possessed knowledge, power, cultivation methods, and power. Once Lin Yuan opened an academy in the northern frontier, then everyone in the northern frontier would stand on the same starting line as the disciples of the noble families and sects. At that time, if one didn't have exceptional talent, one might not be able to continue standing at the peak of the northern frontier. Moreover, the population of the northern frontier was there. Even if there were only 10 geniuses in a generation, then at least 6 of them were hidden among the common people. Once these hidden geniuses began to display their talents, they would definitely be greatly nurtured by the noble families of the northern frontier. After all, with the Hengduan mountain range behind them, even if the noble families of the northern frontier were still very weak, they could invest countless times more resources in nurturing talents. So what if they weren't cultivation geniuses? Who would be willing to lower themselves to become someone's servant after studying and learning the principles and knowledge of how to be a person? Without these servants, who would cultivate the large amount of land controlled by the noble families and sects of the northern frontier? Could it be that these high and mighty cultivators had to personally work in the fields? When the time came, these abandoned lands could only be purchased by the noble families of the northern frontier at a low price and returned to public land, distributed to the common people in the northern frontier who relied on farming for a living. Although they were all farmers, farming for the noble families and sects and farming for the noble families of the northern frontier were two different things. After all, one needed to pay taxes twice, while the other only needed to pay taxes once. Even an idiot would know which one to choose. This government decree that might be issued, but it might also be a groundless rumor. Without a doubt, it was a desperate plan, a plan that could directly cut off the foundations of many powers in the northern frontier. If this continued, the only voice left in the northern frontier would be the noble families of the northern frontier. Meanwhile, the noble families of the northern frontier that relied on the resources provided by Lin Yuan to support large amounts of talents would soon be completely overthrown, becoming a chess piece that could be casually played within the hands of Lin Yuan. When he first received this news, Xiao Yilan instantly broke out in cold sweat from fright. However, it wasn't that there weren't any capable people within the noble families of the northern frontier. They knew that after this government decree was issued, the northern frontier would completely become Lin Yuan's sole authority. Therefore, their internal opinions had always been divided, and this was the key reason why the government decree was stuck. In addition, Lin Yuan had been constantly pressuring them recently, so the Qiao family and the other noble families were also very uneasy. They had always wanted to find an opportunity to flex their muscles for Lin Yuan to show that the noble families and sects of the northern frontier weren't so weak that they could be bullied. It was just that they hadn't found the right opportunity. After all, if they rashly showed their muscles, it would be easier for Lin Yuan to clean them up. What, is it inconvenient? A fake smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face, and a trace of ridicule flashed in his eyes. Although he couldn't tell if the beautiful woman's words were true or false, Xiao Yilan's reaction had already told him that the beautiful woman's words were indeed true. At the very least, that secret really existed. Moreover, even the Qiao family attached great importance to it. The value of this secret was probably even higher than Lin Yuan had imagined. Lin Yuan had never thought that the government decree that he had yet to issue had already been leaked. Therefore, he didn't even think that the sea of people he saw today was actually the result of the Qiao family's preparations. He still thought that the Qiao family's strength had already reached such a terrifying degree. This didn't make Lin Yuan afraid. Instead, it made him even more determined to eradicate the noble families and sects. Xiao Yilan shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "My Qiao family has always been upright. What inconvenience is there? It's just that Lord Dragon King might not know, but this person is an abandoned son of my Qiao family. In the past, he betrayed the Qiao family and colluded with outsiders to deal with our Qiao family. After that, he went to a foreign land and came to the northern frontier to purchase spirit items. He was caught red-handed by us. Speaking of which, we still have to thank Lord Dragon King. If not for you, this person might not have returned to the northern frontier." Chapter 310. I know that. Lin Yuan choked on Xiao Yilan's words again, and the ridicule in his eyes intensified. Then, Xiao Yilan opened his mouth, and a trace of indignation flashed across his eyes. He could see that this black snake didn't even put his Qiao clan in his eyes. He clearly knew that the other party was an abandoned disciple that the Qiao clan had expelled back then, and he still dared to boldly come over and ask for the person. What did this black snake think of his Qiao clan as? An ant on the side of the road that he could casually step on? I've already said that this person is a friend of mine. I only came to the Qiao family to ask if you can give this Lin some face and let bygones be bygones. First, release this person to reunite with his family. This way, this Lin will be able to answer to my friend's wife and children. However, Qiao clan head can rest assured. This Lin will not let the Qiao clan lose face for nothing. I can make the decision. The next time the Qiao clan orders phase, I can give the Qiao clan a 20% discount. No matter how much you order, I will definitely not let you suffer a loss in terms of price. Lin Yuan looked at Xiao Yilan with a sincere gaze, and his tone had a hint of negotiation. If it was an ordinary matter, Xiao Yilan really had to give this face. After all, Lin Yuan controlled all the fei supply in the northern frontier. Once they fell out with Lin Yuan and couldn't directly defeat Lin Yuan and the northern frontier prince's residence, the Qiao clan would no longer have a foothold in the northern frontier. They might not even be able to maintain their current business. Order feis? Sorry, out of stock. The northern frontier's fei distribution was in Lin Yuan's hands, and he would give as much as he wanted. As long as Lin Yuan said a few harsh words to the Qiao clan, the Qiao clan wouldn't be able to get any feis in the future. This matter wouldn't arouse the sympathy of the other clans and sections. Instead, they would be eager for the Qiao clan to be kicked out. After all, this was a business with huge profits. If others were to earn a bit more, it would mean that their own profits would be reduced. As for other aspects, the northern frontier prince's residence could clearly make arrangements for the Qiao clan. They could attack the Qiao clan from all angles using the law and underground rules. Even if the Qiao clan had a huge business, how long could they last against Lin Yuan's attacks within the rules? As long as Lin Yuan didn't directly use force to suppress the Qiao clan, it would be very difficult to arouse the rebellious thoughts of the other sects and clans. Sometimes, once benefits were involved, even the most astute person would be blinded. If Lin Yuan wanted to suppress the Qiao clan, he didn't need to bring a large number of armed forces. Low-level fei beasts were too difficult to control. If he launched a beast tide to attack the Qiao clan, the people of Shunning City would inevitably suffer heavy casualties. This was undoubtedly something that Lin Yuan didn't want to see. However, excluding the power of the Hengduan mountain range, just the power of the northern frontier prince's residence and the other 6 city lords might not be enough to suppress the terrifying Qiao clan. However, this didn't mean that Lin Yuan couldn't do anything to the Qiao clan. After all, although the northern frontier was under his control, there was still the existence of the Xinwu dynasty. Therefore, Lin Yuan could play with the Qiao clan within the rules. As long as the Qiao clan dared to rebel, not only would they not have a place to stay in the northern frontier, but even the Xinwu dynasty wouldn't let go of this deep-rooted family in the northern frontier that vaguely threatened the Xinwu dynasty's control over the northern frontier. There was no other way, but once there was an opportunity, with Lei Qiusheng's domineering personality, he would definitely not let go of any opportunity to eliminate dissidents. Therefore, Lin Yuan came alone, not to show off, but purely because there was no need to. Lin Yuan's words directly kicked the ball to Xiao Yilan, and Xiao Yilan's face was also full of helplessness. Now, the other party didn't want to talk about the abandoned son of the Qiao clan or anything like that. He even vaguely avoided the other party's secrets and directly asked if they would give him face or not. The corner of Xiao Yilan's mouth twitched slightly, and he said in a deep voice, "Lord Dragon King, it's not that my Qiao clan doesn't want to give you face, but this bastard's past actions are really infuriating. This time, we finally caught him, so a few of our family's juniors were a little agitated and accidentally hit him a little hard. Now, he's probably dead." Hearing how shameless Xiao Yilan was, Lin Yuan's mouth twitched violently. He couldn't help but think of the beautiful woman who asked him to take action. That woman probably already knew what kind of end her man would end up in before she set off, right? However, since Xiao Yilan had already said that, Lin Yuan really couldn't continue to make things difficult for him. After all, the other party really was an abandoned son of the Qiao clan. Even if Lin Yuan investigated this point, he wouldn't be able to find any problems. Although the internal strife of the Qiao clan wasn't so cruel that they had to fight to the death, in order to prevent outsiders from gossiping, their hands and feet would definitely be very clean. Therefore, the name that this abandoned son of the Qiao clan had been pinned on him back then could really be that he had colluded with foreign enemies. If Lin Yuan continued to make things difficult for the Qiao clan now, it wouldn't be as if he was pressuring the Qiao clan, but as if he was determined to find trouble with the Qiao clan with a cold face. Lin Yuan definitely wouldn't do something that required effort and didn't benefit him. No matter what the other party was like before he came here, but now, they would definitely deal a fatal blow to the abandoned son of the Qiao clan. Even if they guessed that the beautiful woman who asked Lin Yuan to come here also knew about this secret, the final outcome wouldn't be much different. However, they still wouldn't hand the person over to Lin Yuan. After all, this was still considered a game. How could the Qiao clan be willing to lower their heads? Lord Dragon King, Patriarch Qiao, what are you guys chatting about? Just as both parties were in a deadlock, Lei Fan suddenly led Li Zhongsheng and Luo Su out from behind Lin Yuan. There was a hint of meaning in his eyes as he sized up Qiao Yilin and the two Heavenly Dipper realm experts from the Qiao clan. Although there was a hint of laughter in his voice, there wasn't a hint of a smile on Lei Fan's face. On the contrary, Lei Fan's cold eyes were filled with malice. Why are you here? Without waiting for Qiao Yilin to open his mouth to exchange pleasantries, Lin Yuan asked in surprise. Lei Fan snorted coldly and said in a strange tone, I'm here to seek an explanation from Patriarch Qiao. I didn't expect the Northern Frontier's Qiao clan to be so powerful, to openly plant their men in the Northern Frontier Prince's mansion and even flip through the documents on my desk. As his voice fell, Luo Su suddenly threw the bundle he was carrying on his shoulders onto the ground. A few muffled groans could be heard from within the bundle and then it started to wriggle. Luo Su didn't stay idle either. He took 2 steps forward and stepped on the bundle. With a flip of his hand, he pulled out a dagger from his waist and sliced open the bundle, revealing the badly mutilated human-shaped creature inside. Even for Lin Yuan, after searching his mind for a long time, he could barely find the word human-shaped creature to describe it. Although he could still distinguish the head, body, limbs and the like, every single one of them was badly mutilated. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.